When my dad's best friend said I was such a bad mother that I should give my baby up for adoption, I revealed a secret about him that shocked everyone. My dad's friend said I was a terrible mother, and I couldn't take it anymore, so I publicly humiliated him. Now my dad is demanding that I apologize. But there's more to the story. I was 18 and in college when I first met my dad's friend, Harold. Right away, he treated me with disrespect. When he found out I was studying medicine, the first thing he said was, "Oh, so you think you can save the world? How cute. Little 18-year-old thinks she can change the world." My dad laughed, and when I glared at him, he just said Harold's comment was funny. From then on, every time I saw Harold, he would insult me. He made fun of my clothes, called the books I read childish, and even made a rude comment about my past in volleyball, saying I probably only liked it because I could wear tight outfits around boys. My dad never stood up for me. The last straw came when Harold interrupted me at a barbecue, telling me I didn't know how to cook and physically pushing me out of the way. After that, I tried to avoid him for 6 years. Yesterday was my dad's girlfriend's birthday, and I went with my fiancé and our 6-month-old son. Harold was there, and even though I hadn't seen him in years, he still treated me like a clueless child. My baby spent most of the afternoon sleeping, but when he woke up hungry, I went to breastfeed him. When I came back, Harold started making jokes, saying I was probably a terrible mother. He then started questioning my parenting and calling me a bad mom in front of everyone. I finally lost it when he asked if I had considered giving my baby up for adoption. I shouted at him, asking how he could judge me when his ex-wife had full custody of his own child. I then exposed a secret, that he tried to sleep with his brother's girlfriend. To top it off, I told him to lose some weight and that no woman would want to touch him with that gut. I left with my fiancé and son after that. On the drive home, my dad kept texting me, demanding I come back and apologize to Harold. I refused and asked my dad if he knew what Harold had said to me. My dad yelled, saying Harold had just offered to make me a sandwich, which made me laugh. My dad had been in the bathroom the whole time, so he didn't hear anything that actually happened. He only saw me yelling and leaving the room. When my dad asked why I was laughing so much, I first told him it was nothing, but when he asked again, I said Harold was lying and that I wasn't going to explain. I told my dad he should call Harold himself to find out. I then called him out for always taking Harold's side whenever he upset me. I told my dad it wouldn't surprise me if he just blindly believed Harold again and ignored what I was saying now. My dad hung up, and I didn't hear from him the rest of the night. My fiancé told me he was really proud of me, saying my comments were not only bold but also hilarious. I was glad he felt that way. Update 1. First, I want to address a common assumption. Some people think Harold has feelings for me. I don't think so. His comments were always annoying and condescending, but they never seemed suggestive. Still, your support made me feel better, and I was touched by how many people were on my side. I did feel a little bad about what I said, but I don't regret standing up for myself. I think I felt bad because it meant I'd stopped keeping the peace after so many years. It took a while for the relief to set in. Honestly, I'd wanted to confront Harold ever since the barbecue incident. That's when my feelings about him changed from I don't like him to I can't stand him. The day after my first post, my dad actually called Harold, which surprised me. When my dad asked Harold what really happened, Harold hesitated before admitting the truth. He took a minute to respond and then said, "Oh, I know." Harold tried to explain to my dad that he was just concerned about me becoming a mom so young and that he didn't mean any harm. I knew what I was doing, and while Harold apologized to my dad, I didn't believe his excuses. The next day, my dad told me about the call and said I should forgive Harold for what he called an honest misunderstanding. He also thought I should apologize because I overreacted by telling Harold I hated him over something small. A lot of Harold's rude comments happened in front of my dad, but my dad was usually too distracted to notice them. He doesn't pay attention unless something directly involves him or makes him angry, and even then, he'll probably forget about it later. We also have different ideas of what's offensive, so my dad never saw Harold's comments as a big deal. I told my dad that I wasn't exaggerating when I said I hated Harold and that the adoption comment was just one example of many. I reminded him of all the condescending things Harold had said to me over the years, including at the party. My dad didn't remember any of them. I made it clear that I've hated Harold for years and that I had no reason to apologize. I also told my dad that I won't be attending any events Harold is invited to. I don't expect my dad to stop being friends with Harold, but I won't be around him anymore. I said I would ask in advance if Harold is coming, and if my dad lies, I'll leave. My dad called me dramatic, but I pointed out that I'd been avoiding Harold for 6 years, and no one even noticed, so clearly it wasn't a big problem. I told him I don't have to like his friends any more than he has to like mine. After some back and forth, my dad agreed to my terms. Yesterday, my dad mentioned that Harold was upset, but I just ignored it. I'm not cutting off my dad completely, though I've come close in the past few years. Moving out has made things easier, and since we only see each other a few times a month, it's manageable. My dad doesn't complain as much about me not calling or texting anymore. I don't see the point in going no contact with him since he no longer has any control over my life. Instead, I'm focusing on raising my own child differently and learning from my dad's mistakes. My relationship with my dad is still rocky, and I don't trust him to babysit because he tends to fall asleep on the couch. I pushed him to start therapy when I got pregnant, and he finally started in June. His behavior has improved a lot, especially with me and my younger sister, who still splits time between our divorced parents. I've made it clear to him that he won't be allowed near my son if he stops going to therapy. This is the first time in my life that my dad has made real progress, and while it's hard to be hopeful, I'm trying. If I ever do cut ties with him, it won't be because of Harold. That's the whole story. I'm relieved I no longer have to pretend or hide things. My relationship with my dad is rocky, but I'm not going to dwell on it. My main focus is on my son, my fiancé, and my job, and that's not changing anytime soon. Update 2. Avoiding Harold has been going well. My dad has been respecting my boundaries. Whenever he invites my husband and me over for lunch or dinner, I ask who else will be there. If Harold is coming, my dad tells me, and he hasn't lied so far. He also doesn't push when I say I'm not coming. Since my last post, I've only seen Harold once, at my dad's birthday party a few months ago. Yes, I knew Harold would be there, but my dad promised Harold wouldn't talk to me. Also, some of my dad's friends' kids, who I used to babysit and love, would be there. I wanted to see them more than I wanted to avoid Harold. I spent most of the party with my son and the kids, and Harold didn't speak to me at all, so I guess my dad kept his word. My husband and I noticed Harold staring at us a few times, but I chose to ignore it. At one point, I saw my husband staring back, and the sweet guy I married actually managed to look intimidating. I love him for that. You know who did talk to me? Harold's girlfriend. Yes, he has one now. She came over twice. First, she came to look at my son and then made a comment about how he needed a haircut. Great start, right? Later, she came up to me again and said, "You're shy, aren't you?" I said no, and she laughed, saying, "Yeah, you're shy," as if she was talking to a child. I held back my reaction, but I wanted to tell her I wasn't shy. I just preferred spending time with the kids because they were better company than her and Harold. Based on these interactions, Harold's girlfriend is just as unbearable as he is, so they're perfect for each other. I don't have much else to add. My dad broke up with the woman he was dating last year and now has a new girlfriend. She's not annoying or crazy, and I actually like her, though I don't think they'll last a year. My relationship with my dad still isn't perfect, but it's better. He's been apologizing to me more often, which is surprising. Maybe it's the therapy, or maybe motherhood has made me more intimidating, but I'll take it. To be fair, he's a really good grandfather, and I appreciate that. I'm also glad my dad is respecting my boundary with Harold because I definitely don't want him in my life anymore. Update 3. A few months passed, and everything had been going well. My dad was sticking to the boundaries I set about Harold, and I wasn't dreading family events anymore. I'd attend dinners with my fiancé and son, and we'd have a good time without any issues. I really thought I was done with Harold. Then came my dad's birthday. It was supposed to be a simple dinner, and I made sure to ask if Harold was going to be there. My dad reassured me that Harold wasn't invited, and I felt relieved since I didn't want to deal with him. Everything was fine at first. My dad was happy, his girlfriend was being sweet, and it was nice catching up with family friends. But a few hours in, guess who walked through the door? Harold, and he was drunk. I gave my dad a look, and he seemed just as surprised as I was. He hadn't invited Harold. Turns out Harold heard about the party from someone else and showed up unannounced. He was loud, obnoxious, and made everyone uncomfortable. I stayed away from him, focusing on my son and talking to friends. I figured we'd leave early if Harold got too annoying, but as the night went on, Harold got worse. He made snide comments to people, mostly to my dad, but I could feel his eyes on me the entire time. At one point, I overheard Harold drunkenly tell my dad, You should have brought someone else's kid instead of hers. At least then you'd have a chance at decent grandkids. I froze. I wanted to scream at him, but I stayed calm, focusing on my son and fiancé. I thought if I ignored him, he'd stop. Then things got dangerous. My dad was at the grill, and Harold, in his drunken state, decided to take over. He shoved my dad out of the way and ended up knocking the entire tray of food onto the ground. Everyone was staring. I was just waiting for my dad to do something, but he tried to laugh it off like Harold was just being himself. That was the final straw. I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed over and yelled at Harold, telling him he needed to leave. He smirked at me like it was all a joke and said, "Oh, little Miss knows best, huh? You think you're all grown up now with your perfect little family." I'd had enough. I snapped and told Harold I was done with him. I said, "You've been an arrogant, disgusting jerk for years, and if you think I'm going to let you treat me or my family like this anymore, you're delusional. Get the hell out of here." Harold just stared at me, not even trying to defend himself this time. My dad finally stepped in, and for once, he was on my side. He told Harold, "You need to leave now." Harold was shocked and tried to laugh it off, but my dad didn't budge. He repeated, "Leave, Harold, you've crossed too many lines, and you're not welcome here anymore." Harold stumbled out, and after that, my dad apologized to me. This time, I could tell he was serious. He admitted he'd been wrong to let Harold get away with so much for so long. For the first time, he chose me over Harold. It wasn't just words either. My dad hasn't spoken to Harold since.
10 years of my life disappeared into my parents' mortgage payments. 10 years of overtime, cancelled vacations, and just until things get better. But watching my father laugh about throwing me away like a used tissue, that's the moment everything changed. I'm Natalia, and until last night, I was the perfect daughter. The responsible one. The one who gave up her dreams of graduate school to help keep the family afloat after Dad's business took a hit in 2008. Meanwhile, my younger brother Jordan lived rent-free in their basement, finding himself, through failed startups and half-finished coding boot camps. "Just help us through this rough patch," Mom would say, her eyes wide and pleading. "Your brother's still figuring things out." She'd squeeze my hand across their kitchen table, the same one where I'd done my homework as a kid. "You're so strong, sweetheart. So capable." I believed her. Every month, I'd transfer $2,800 to their account. Every Christmas, I'd smile when Jordan got the latest gaming console while I got discount bath sets. Every family dinner, I'd nod along as Dad praised Jordan's entrepreneurial spirit. Last night wasn't supposed to be different. I'd stopped by to drop off Mum's birthday present, a silk scarf I couldn't really afford. The lights were dim, but their voices carried from the kitchen. "She's such a sucker," Jordan was saying. My hand froze on the doorknob. "Did you see her face when I told her about my new business idea? She actually offered to help with startup costs." Dad's laugh, rough like sandpaper. "Well, that's what she's there for, isn't it? Once you're set up properly, we won't need her anymore." "What about the mortgage?" Jordan asked. "Please. By then, your crypto investments will have paid off, and if they don't, well, that's what the trust fund is for, the one she doesn't know about." I pressed myself against the wall, my heart thundering. The trust fund? My money. They'd been diverting my payments into a trust fund for Jordan. "You should have seen her last week," Jordan continued, going on about how she had to cancel her vacation because of unexpected expenses. Meanwhile, I'm booking my trip to Bali. "That's my boy." Dad's chair scraped against the floor. "Your sister's good at one thing, making money. Let her do what she's best at. Speaking of which, did you talk to that financial advisor friend of hers? The ex-boyfriend? Vincenzo?" "Yeah, he's on board. Said he'll help us manage her portfolio once she finally starts investing properly." My fingers dug into the gift bag, crushing the tissue paper. The scarf suddenly felt like a noose. Perfect. Dad's voice grew closer. "Anne keeps saying we should be more grateful, but honestly, Natalia's just doing what a daughter should. It's not like she has her own family to support. I backed away from the door, my designer heels, bought secondhand, silent on their expensive hardwood floors I'd helped pay for. Outside, the cool night air hit my face like a slap. My phone buzzed, a text from Mum. "Where are you, sweetie? Thought you were stopping by." I stared at the message, at the little heart emoji she'd added. All these years, I'd thought she was just weak, caught between Dad's schemes and Jordan's demands. But she knew. She had to know. Another buzz. "Dad says we should discuss increasing the monthly transfer. The property taxes went up again. Call me tomorrow?" I looked up at their house. My house, really, given how much I'd paid into it. Light spilled from the kitchen window, and I could see them in there, probably still laughing, still plotting. My hands stopped shaking. The crushing pain in my chest crystallized into something harder, colder, more useful. I opened my banking app and checked the joint account I shared with them, the one they'd insisted on for emergencies. The balance showed $127,803.42, a decade of my excess funds sitting there like low-hanging fruit. Dad's voice echoed in my head. "Once you're set up properly, we won't need her anymore." I smiled, and it felt like breaking glass. They were right about one thing. I am good at making money, but they're about to learn I'm even better at taking it back. The bank website blinked at me. Transfer complete. I'd left exactly $5.73 in the joint account, enough to make them feel the humiliation of insufficient funds when their next automatic payment hit. My hands were steady as I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop. Already, 3 missed calls from Mum lit up my phone. I silenced it and texted Sydney instead. "Need to talk, now." 20 minutes later, Sydney was at my door with Thai takeout and her trademark concerned expression. "You look like hell," she said, kicking off her heels. "I just moved over 100 grand. I grabbed plates from the kitchen, and I'm about to burn my entire family to the ground. Sydney froze halfway through unpacking the food. "What happened?" I told her everything. The conversation I'd overheard, the trust fund, their plans with Vincenzo. By the time I finished, the pad thai was cold, and Sydney's face had transformed from concern to fury. "Those manipulative pieces of—" She stopped herself. "Wait, Vincenzo? Your ex? The one who kept pushing you to combine finances?" "Yeah." I stabbed at my noodles. Suddenly, his insistence on managing my portfolio makes a lot more sense. My phone buzzed again. Dad, this time. "What the hell did you do? Call me immediately!" Sydney read the message over my shoulder and snorted. "Oh, they're panicking now? Good. They probably just tried to make a payment." I showed her my laptop screen, where I'd pulled up the joint account's transaction history. "See? Every month for 10 years. Mortgage payments, property taxes, home improvements, even Jordan's car payments. Jesus." Sydney scrolled through the numbers. "This is straight-up financial abuse. But moving the money, they could come after you legally. Let them try." I pulled out a folder I'd been keeping for years. Every email where they promised to pay me back. Every text about temporary help. And this, I slapped down a document with my father's signature. A written agreement that all funds were loans to be repaid. "You clever bitch," Sydney grinned. "You've been planning this, not consciously, but I've always kept records." I took a long sip of wine. "The question is, what now?" "Now?" Sydney pulled out her phone. "Now we call my friend Lillian. She's a probate lawyer who specializes in family financial disputes, and—" She held up a finger as I started to protest. "Before you say no, think about this. Do you want revenge, or do you want results?" My phone lit up with a text from Jordan. "Dad's having chest pains because of you. Hope you're happy, you selfish witch." "Both," I said quietly. I want both. Sydney nodded and started dialing. Then let's do this right. Make them feel every single penny they stole from you. As she talked to Lillian, I opened my email. There, buried in my archived folders, was the last message from Vincenzo before we broke up. You're making a mistake, Nat. I could help you build real wealth. Your family agrees. I've discussed it with your father. Just trust me with your portfolio. At the time, I'd thought he was being controlling. Now I understood. He'd been their inside man all along. I forwarded the email to a new folder labeled Evidence. My phone buzzed again. Mom this time. Please, sweetie, whatever you're upset about, we can talk about this. Your father's beside himself. We're family. Family. The word tasted like ashes now. Lillian can see you tomorrow at 9, Sydney announced, ending her call. She says to bring every document you have. And Nat? She waited until I looked up. She says this is just the beginning. There are ways to trace where your money went, to follow every dollar they diverted. I thought about the trust fund they'd mentioned, built with my sacrifice savings, about Jordan's luxury vacations while I worked overtime, about a decade of manipulation so subtle I'd mistaken it for love. Tell her I'll be there. I opened my banking app again, this time to my personal account. The transferred money sat there, a war chest for what was coming. And Sydney? Thank you. She squeezed my hand. They thought you were their ATM. Time to show them you're actually their worst nightmare. Another text flashed on my phone. Vincenzo. Hey stranger, been thinking about you. Coffee sometime. I showed Sydney the message, and her eyes lit up with wicked understanding. Oh, this is perfect. He has no idea you know, does he? No, I said, already typing a response, and we're going to keep it that way. For now. The pieces were falling into place. Tomorrow I'd see Lillian, but tonight I had some documents to organize and a very interesting coffee date to plan. Lillian's office smelled like leather and money. She flipped through my documents with manicured fingers, occasionally making notes on her tablet. I'd been sitting here for 45 minutes, watching her face grow progressively darker. This is... She paused, choosing her words carefully. This is methodical. The way they structured these transfers, the timing of their requests. They knew exactly what they were doing. How bad is it? She turned her tablet around. On the screen was a complex flowchart of transactions. See these transfers? They weren't just using your money for the mortgage. They were investing it. My stomach clenched. The trust fund they mentioned? Better. Lillian's smile was razor sharp. Your father opened multiple investment accounts under Jordan's name, used your mortgage payments as seed money. The total value now? Just over $200,000. The room tilted slightly. 200,000? And that's just what I can trace easily. She leaned forward. Want to know the best part? The accounts are linked to your parents' tax returns. They've been claiming the gains, but the initial investments came from you. Can you prove it? With a court order? Absolutely. She pulled out a fresh legal pad. But before we go nuclear, let's talk strategy. You mentioned your ex-boyfriend Vincenzo is somehow involved? I nodded, pulling out my phone to show her our recent text exchange. We'd scheduled coffee for tomorrow. Perfect. Lillian made another note. Don't tip your hand. We need to know exactly how deep this goes. But first... She turned her screen again, showing me a document I'd never seen before. Do you recognize this? My blood ran cold. It was a life insurance policy, in my name, with Jordan listed as the sole beneficiary. When... My voice cracked. When did they take this out? 3 months ago. Lillian's voice was gentle. The premiums are being paid from one of those investment accounts. Your money, paying for a policy you never knew about. The implications hit me like a physical blow. They weren't just planning to cut me off, they were setting up a backup plan. One that would benefit them more if I think I'm going to be sick. Lillian handed me a glass of water. This changes things. We're not just dealing with financial abuse anymore. This is fraud, possibly criminal conspiracy. My phone buzzed. Another text from Mom. Please come to dinner tonight. We need to talk as a family. Don't respond, Lillian advised, reading over my shoulder. In fact, don't contact them at all. Let them panic. They've been calling constantly, showing up at my office. Good. Let them make scenes, document everything. She started typing rapidly on her computer. I'm filing for an emergency injunction on those investment accounts, and we're getting that life insurance policy cancelled immediately. I thought about all those family dinners, all those times they'd insisted I drink the wine they'd poured, the headaches I'd sometimes get afterward. Had they already been? Stop! Lillian's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. Whatever you're thinking, stop. We deal with facts now, not fears. Here's what you're going to do. She outlined the plan. Meet with Vincenzo, record everything, let him incriminate himself. Meanwhile, she'd start the legal process to freeze the accounts and investigate the paper trail. What about my parents? Jordan? Radio silence. Let them stew. She handed me a business card. This is a private investigator I trust. He'll document their reactions, their movements, every panicked conversation in public, every attempt to contact you. My phone buzzed again, Jordan this time. Mum's in tears. Dad can barely eat. Hope you're proud of destroying this family. Lillian read the message and smiled coldly. They're trying to guilt you. Classic abuser tactics. But here's what they don't understand. You're not their victim anymore. You're their reckoning. I stood up, gathering my documents. How long until they realize how much trouble they're in? Oh, they already know. That's why they're desperate to talk. She walked me to the door. But soon they'll learn the difference between family drama and federal fraud charges. As I left her office, another text came through, from Vincenzo. Looking forward to catching up tomorrow. I have some interesting investment opportunities to discuss. I showed it to Lillian, who was already reaching for her phone. I'm calling in a favor. Tomorrow's coffee meeting. You'll have backup nearby. Every word will be recorded. For the first time in days, I felt something close to calm. They'd spent years weaving their web, thinking I was just a fly. They never noticed I was a spider too. One more thing, Lillian called as I reached the elevator. Check your mail carefully. People like this, when they realize they're caught, they often try to hide assets or create new insurance policies. The doors closed on her knowing smile, and I pressed the lobby button with steady hands. Tomorrow, I'd have coffee with a traitor. Tonight, I had some mail to sort through. The coffee shop buzzed with morning energy as Vincenzo slid into the seat across from me. He looked exactly the same. Expensive watch, calculated smile, perfect hair. 2 years ago, that smile made my heart race. Now it made my skin crawl. Nat, he said warmly, setting down his artisanal coffee. You look amazing. I touched the small recorder in my jacket pocket, drawing strength from it. Thanks. How's the financial advisory business? Booming. Actually, that's partly why I wanted to meet. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. I've been thinking about our past conversations about investment strategies. I was right, wasn't I? About combining resources? I forced a laugh. Still trying to manage my portfolio? I care about your future, Nat. Always have. His hand reached for mine. I pulled back, pretending to adjust my coffee cup. Actually, I recently spoke with your father about some exciting opportunities. There it was. I kept my face neutral. Oh? When did you talk to my father? We've stayed in touch. He's worried about you, you know. Says you've been making some impulsive financial decisions lately. My phone buzzed. Right on cue. A text from Dad. Your card was declined at Morton's last night. Embarrassing. Call me immediately. I showed Vincenzo the message, watching his reaction. His eyes flickered with recognition. He'd known this was coming. See? He gestured at my phone. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Let me help. I can stabilize your finances, create a solid investment plan. Your father already approved. My father approved? I interrupted, voice sharp. Why would my father's approval matter for my investments? Vincenzo backpedaled smoothly. I just meant he agrees it's a good idea. He mentioned you've been supporting the family. Admirable, but maybe not the best long-term strategy. And what would be a better strategy? Let me show you. He pulled out his tablet, pulling up some documents. I've drafted a preliminary plan. We transfer your assets to a managed account, my firm's naturally. Then we diversify into some specific funds I've selected. As he talked, I noticed his leg bouncing under the table. Nervous tell. He'd always done that when lying. Interesting, I said. And would these funds be similar to the ones you helped my father set up? The ones using my mortgage payments? His coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. I don't know what you... Or maybe like the trust fund you helped them hide from me. I kept my voice conversational, even as his face drained of color. $200,000, Vincenzo. That's a lot of redirected money. Natalia, listen. No, you listen. I pulled out my phone, showing him the banking app. See this? Every transfer, every transaction. All traced and documented. Want to guess how many federal regulations you violated by helping them? He stood up so quickly, his chair scraped loudly. Several people turned to look. You're making a mistake. Your father won't... My father won't what? Keep paying you consulting fees? Too late. I smiled up at him. By the way, the SEC is very interested in unlicensed financial advisors who assist in fraud schemes. I wonder what they'll find when they audit your practice. You wouldn't dare. I already did. Check your office voicemail. His face contorted. For a moment, I thought he might cause a scene. Instead, he grabbed his coat with shaking hands. You're going to regret this, he hissed. Your whole family will. No, Vincenzo, you will. I held up my phone, showing the recording app. Every word of this conversation is already being transcribed and sent to my lawyer. Want to threaten me again? He practically ran from the coffee shop. Through the window, I watched him pull out his phone, probably calling my father. Perfect. Sydney emerged from a nearby table where she'd been sitting incognito. That was beautiful, she said, sliding into Vincenzo's abandoned seat. Did you see his face when you mentioned the SEC? Think he'll warn them? Oh, definitely. Your father's probably having a stroke right now. She checked her watch. Just in time for their monthly country club lunch, too. Very public venue for a meltdown. My phone started buzzing with texts. Dad. What have you done? Mom. Please stop this madness. Jordan. You psychotic bitch! I showed them to Sydney, who grinned. Right on schedule. Lillian's investigator is at the country club now, ready to document everything. Good. I stood up, gathering my things. Because Phase 2 starts tonight. The utilities? Every single one. I checked my own watch. By dinner time, their power, water, and cable will all be disconnected. Amazing how fast companies respond when you prove account fraud. Sydney's eyes gleamed. And the mortgage payment? Due tomorrow, with the joint account empty and their cards declined. I shrugged. I hear late fees are brutal these days. We walked out into the sunny morning, leaving Vincenzo's untouched coffee cooling on the table. In my pocket, the recorder held enough evidence to destroy his career, but that was just the beginning. Tonight, my family would learn what real consequences felt like. Lillian's conference room felt like a war room as we watched the security feed from my parents' meeting in the adjacent office. They'd come expecting to file emergency mortgage paperwork. Instead, they were walking into an ambush. "Mrs. Hoffman," Lillian's voice came through the speakers, cool and professional. "Mr. Hoffman, please, have a seat." My mother's hands twisted her designer purse, the one I'd bought her last Christmas. "We were told this was about a mortgage modification?" "Not exactly." Lillian opened a thick folder. "This meeting is about financial fraud, tax evasion, and criminal conspiracy." Dad's face reddened. "Now see here." "No, you see here." Lillian slid documents across the table. 10 years of diverted mortgage payments, investment accounts opened with fraudulent documentation, and this. She produced a copy of the life insurance policy. "Care to explain why you took out a policy on your daughter without her knowledge?" Mom's face went white. "That's not. We were just trying to protect the family." "By planning your daughter's death? How dare you!" Dad slammed his hand on the table. "We would never—" "Really?" Lillian played an audio clip, my conversation with Vincenzo. Dad's face changed from red to grey as his own name came up repeatedly in the recording. "That proves nothing," he stammered. "No? Then perhaps these will." More documents appeared. Bank statements showing systematic theft, emails discussing how to manage your daughter's assets without her knowledge, and my personal favourite. She held up a printed conversation. Text messages between you and your son discussing how to, quote, "get rid of the problem once the trust fund matures." In the observation room, Sydney squeezed my hand. On screen, my mother had started crying. "We can explain," she sobbed. "We only wanted to steal from your daughter?" Lillian's voice could have frozen hell. "To potentially harm her for insurance money. The FBI is very interested in that part, by the way." Dad stood up so fast his chair toppled. "This is ridiculous. Where is Natalia? We demand to speak with her." "Your daughter isn't here," Lillian smiled. "But her lawyers are, and her evidence is. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "Is this blackmail?" Dad sputtered. "This is consequence." Lillian opened another folder. Option 1. You sign these papers. Full confession, complete asset disclosure, immediate transfer of all fraudulent accounts back to Natalia. You walk away broke but free. And option 2? Mom whispered. I make a phone call, and federal agents arrive to discuss insurance fraud and conspiracy charges. Your choice. Dad reached for the papers, then hesitated. We need to think about this. You have 30 seconds. This is outrageous. He grabbed his coat. Come on, Anne. We're leaving. That would be unwise. Lillian pressed a button on her phone. Security? 2 large men entered the room. Sir, please sit down. Federal agents are already en route. Mom collapsed into tears. Fletcher, please, just sign it. Listen to your wife, Lillian advised. Because once those agents arrive, this generous offer disappears. In the observation room, I watched my father age 10 years in 10 seconds. His hands shook as he reached for the papers. Initial here, Lillian pointed. And here. This transfers the trust fund back to Natalia. This surrenders all claim to the property. This is your confession. Page after page, signature after signature. Mum could barely hold the pen through her sobs. When it was done, Lillian gathered the papers. You'll be hearing from the tax authorities shortly. I suggest getting your own lawyers. Good ones. Can we at least talk to Natalia? Mom pleaded. Your daughter. Lillian's smile was arctic. She's watching everything. Has been all along. Would you like to say something to the camera? They both looked up, finally noticing the small lens in the corner. Mom reached toward it, mouth opening. I switched off the feed. You okay? Sydney asked softly. Better than okay. I turned to Lillian as she entered our room. Is it done? Signed and notarized. She handed me the folder. The trust fund transfers tomorrow. They're completely cut off. My phone buzzed. Jordan. What the fuck did you make them sign? Dad's having chest pains for real this time. Your brother's next, Lillian said, reading the message. The IRS is particularly interested in his role in all this. Good. I stood up, gathering my things. Send me the bill. Already taken care of. Your parents just paid it, part of their settlement. She walked me to the elevator. One last thing. Change your locks. People like this, they don't go quietly. As if on cue, another text from Mum. You've destroyed us. I hope you're satisfied. You're no longer our daughter. I showed it to Lillian, who shook her head. No, Mrs. Hoffman, she murmured. You destroyed yourselves. Natalia just showed you the mirror. The elevator doors closed on their reflection, and I felt nothing but clean, cold satisfaction. Phase 3 would begin tomorrow. Tonight, somewhere in the city, my family was learning what it meant to be truly broke. Just like they'd planned for me. The headline on Sydney's laptop made me smile. Financial abuse in affluent families, a hidden epidemic. The article didn't name names, but anyone who knew my family would recognize the story. Your father's law firm called, Sydney said, closing the browser. He's been placed on administrative leave pending an ethics investigation. How tragic. I sipped my coffee, scanning my emails. Oh look, Jordan's crypto accounts are frozen. Seems the IRS has some questions about his funding sources. The elevator dinged, and our office receptionist burst in. Natalia, your mother's here. She's making a scene in the lobby. I pulled up the security feed on my computer. There was Mom, designer clothes now wrinkled, mascara streaking her face as she waved papers at the security guard. Should I call the police? The receptionist asked. No need. I pressed the intercom. Send her up. Sydney raised an eyebrow. You sure about this? Watch and learn. Mom burst through my office door moments later, wild-eyed and desperate. How could you? Your father might lose his license. Jordan's accounts are frozen. We can't even pay our electric bill. Sounds stressful. I kept my voice neutral. Maybe Jordan can get a job? He's your brother. She slammed her hands on my desk. We're your family. Family. I stood slowly. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't conspire. Family doesn't take out life insurance policies without consent. That was your father's idea. I never... Never what? Never knew. Never participated. I pulled out my phone, played a recording. Her voice, discussing with Dad how to handle me once Jordan was set up. She collapsed into a chair, deflating. We were going to pay you back. With what? The money you stole from me? You don't understand, she whispered. Jordan needed... security. I pressed my intercom. Please escort my mother out. She's no longer welcome in this building. Natalia, please! She reached for me as 2 guards entered. We can fix this. You can't fix what you broke on purpose. I turned back to my computer as they led her away, her sobs echoing down the hallway. Sydney waited until the elevator closed. That was ice cold. She's lucky I didn't press charges. My phone buzzed, an email from Lillian. Speaking of charges, the email contained a court filing. Dad was suing me for emotional damages, claiming I'd manipulated and extorted them. He's desperate, Sydney said, reading over my shoulder. His lawyer must know this is suicide. My phone rang. Lillian. Your father's attorney just withdrew from the case, she announced without preamble. Apparently, he didn't appreciate learning about the fraud evidence after filing. How unfortunate. I forwarded her the security footage of Mum's meltdown. For your records. Perfect. Oh, and Natalia, A package arrived at my office for you. Security flagged it. Ice slid down my spine. What kind of package? The concerning kind? Old family photos with your eyes scratched out. A rather graphic note about dying alone. Police are processing it for fingerprints. I ended the call, hands steady despite the threat. My phone lit up with texts from Jordan. Hope you're happy now. Dad's reputation is ruined. Mom's having a breakdown. You're dead to us. And finally, watch your back, sis. Sydney read the messages and immediately called building security. We need an escort for Natalia, and check all incoming mail. A knock at my door made us both jump. It was the receptionist again, holding a thick envelope. This just came by courier. Had to sign for it. Inside was a single document, Dad's disbarment notice, effective immediately, pending investigation into ethical violations. They really thought they'd win this, Sydney marveled, that you'd just roll over and take it forever. Their mistake. I added the notice to my growing file. But they're not done yet. What do you mean? I showed her my laptop screen, an email from an anonymous source containing years of my father's client records, evidence of more fraud, more victims. Someone at his firm is turning on him, Sydney whispered. Several someones. I forwarded the email to Lillian. Rats fleeing a sinking ship. My phone buzzed again, a news alert. The local business journal was running a story about my father's firm, highlighting suspicious patterns in client accounts. Sydney squeezed my shoulder. You did it. You actually brought them down. Not yet. I opened my drawer, pulled out one last file. Remember that life insurance policy? I had Lillian dig deeper. Turns out it wasn't the first one they took out in my name. What? There were others, starting right after I began paying their mortgage. I handed her the documents. And guess who processed those policies? Sydney's eyes widened. Vincenzo. Exactly. I smiled, and it felt like victory. Want to help me destroy one more career? She grabbed her coat. I thought you'd never ask. The law office conference room felt different this time. My family sat on one side of the table, thinking they were here for a settlement negotiation. Vincenzo sat apart from them, sweating in his expensive suit. Lillian stood by the door, watching like a hawk. Before we begin, Dad announced, trying to sound authoritative despite his rumpled appearance. We want to discuss dropping all charges, returning to the status quo. Interesting proposal. I entered the room slowly, making them all jump. But I have a counteroffer. Mom reached for me. Sweetie, please. Don't. My voice could have frozen fire. First, let's review what we know. I nodded to Lillian, who started playing audio recordings through the room's speakers. Conversations between Dad and Vincenzo about managing my assets. Mom discussing insurance policies. Jordan laughing about stealing my money. Stop this, Dad demanded. Why? Uncomfortable hearing your own voice plotting my financial destruction? I turned to Vincenzo. Or maybe you'd prefer the video evidence. The color drained from his face as Lillian projected emails onto the wall, dozens of them, spanning years, all showing his involvement in the scheme. These are confidential business communications, he protested weakly. Actually, Lillian interjected, they're evidence of insurance fraud, conspiracy, and practicing financial advisory without proper licensing. The SEC is very interested in them. Jordan stood up suddenly. This is bullshit. You can't. Sit down, I snapped. Unless you'd like to explain your crypto accounts to the IRS right now? He sat. Here's what's going to happen. I placed 4 folders on the table. Each of you has a choice. Sign these papers. Full confessions, complete asset surrender, and permanent no-contact orders. Or what? Mum whispered. Or I make one phone call, and federal agents arrest everyone in this room except me and Lillian. I checked my watch. They're waiting outside. You have 5 minutes. Dad lunged across the table. You ungrateful little... Security guards materialized instantly, restraining him. He'd forgotten about the panic button under my side of the table. 4 minutes now, I said calmly. Vincenzo broke first, grabbing his folder with shaking hands. I'll sign. Just keep the SEC out of this. Too late. Lillian smiled. They're already investigating. This just determines whether you face charges. Mom was crying again, mascara running. We're your family. No. I finally let my anger show. You're parasites who gave birth to me. There's a difference. 3 minutes, Lillian announced. Jordan grabbed his folder, scanning it frantically. This says I have to repay everything. Down to the last penny you stole from me. I turned to Dad, still held by security. Tick-tock. The next 2 minutes were filled with scratching pens and muffled sobs. One by one, they signed. First Vincenzo, then Jordan, then Mom. Dad held out until the last second, face purple with rage. You'll regret this, he growled, scrawling his signature. No, I won't. I gathered the signed documents. Because unlike you, I can sleep at night, knowing I didn't try to murder my child for insurance money. The room went deadly silent. Oh yes, I continued. Lillian found the toxicology reports from my mysterious illness last year, the one that happened right after you took out the first life insurance policy. Mom made a choking sound. Jordan looked sick. Vincenzo wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Get out, I said quietly. All of you. The guards will escort you. If any of you ever contact me again, these confessions go straight to the FBI. They filed out like broken puppets. At the door, Mom turned back one last time. We loved you, she whispered. No. I met her eyes. You loved what I could give you. There's a difference. After they left, Sydney slipped in through the side door. That was magnificent. It's done? I asked Lillian. She nodded, checking her phone. Transfer orders are executed, their accounts are drained, assets frozen. They'll be lucky to keep their clothes. And Vincenzo? SEC agents are waiting at his office. He'll never work in finance again. My phone buzzed. An email from a headhunting firm I'd contacted weeks ago. A position had opened in their Copenhagen office. Fresh start, ocean away. Take it, Sydney said, reading over my shoulder. You've earned it. What about them? I gestured at the door where my family had disappeared. They made their choices, Lillian said firmly. Now they can live with them. I looked around the conference room one last time, where my family had sat, where they'd signed away their comfortable lives, where I'd finally broken free. You're right. I opened the email, clicked, accept offer. Time for me to make my choice too. Behind me, through the window, I could see them in the parking lot. Huddled together, broken, defeated. Finally facing the consequences of their actions. I turned away. I had a flight to book. The Copenhagen winter sunset paints my office in shades of gold and purple as I finish another successful quarter. My team is celebrating downstairs, but I need a moment alone with my thoughts and my laptop. A notification pops up. Sydney's calling. Have you seen the news? She doesn't wait for hello. Your father's firm just collapsed. Complete shutdown. The fraud investigation killed them. I pull up the article. There's his face, haggard and aged, being escorted from the building. How many clients did they steal from? Dozens. You weren't the only victim, just the only one who fought back. She pauses. Your mother's living with her sister now. Jordan's working retail. And Dad? Facing criminal charges. The life insurance scheme wasn't just aimed at you. They found evidence of 3 other attempts with different victims. My hands don't shake anymore when I think about how close I came to being one of those victims. What about Vincenzo? Oh, you'll love this. He tried to flee to Mexico, got caught at the airport. He's cooperating with investigators now, telling them everything about your father's operation. A knock at my door, my assistant with tonight's event schedule. I'm giving a keynote speech at a financial security conference. Topic: Identifying and escaping financial abuse. I should go, I tell Sydney. The conference starts soon. Wait, one more thing. Remember that trust fund they set up with your stolen money? Hard to forget $200,000. Well, Lillian's team finally traced all the investments. With compound interest and market gains, your total recovery is closer to $500,000. I glance at my banking app, at the numbers that represent not just money, but justice. I'm donating most of it. To what? Organizations that help people escape financial abuse. Seems fitting. My assistant gestures. It's time. I gather my presentation materials, including copies of my own bank statements, the insurance policies, the evidence that brought down an empire of lies. Sydney, thank you for everything. Just promise you'll visit soon. Copenhagen's too far. Actually, I smile, looking at the travel itinerary on my screen. I booked a flight home next month. Not to see them, never again, but to help Lillian with a new project. Oh? We're starting a consulting firm, helping people identify and escape financial predators. Turns out my story struck a nerve. We already have a waiting list. Another knock, the conference organizer this time. The audience is ready. Go give that speech, Sydney says. Show them what survival looks like. I end the call and walk to the auditorium. The room is packed, hundreds of faces looking up expectantly. My presentation opens with a simple bank statement. The first mortgage payment I ever made for my parents. Financial abuse doesn't always look like stolen credit cards or forged checks, I begin. Sometimes it looks like family. Sometimes it wears the mask of love. In the back of the room, I spot a familiar face, Lillian, who flew in for this moment. She nods encouragingly. My family spent 10 years grooming me as their personal ATM. They nearly killed me for insurance money. They thought I would stay quiet, stay obedient, stay broken. I click to the next slide, the final balance sheet showing their complete financial ruin. They were wrong. Questions flood in after my speech. How did you know? How did you fight back? How did you survive? But one question stands out. Do you regret it? Destroying your family? I think about Mom's tears, Dad's rage, Jordan's threats, about the poison they tried to feed me, the money they stole, the lives they ruined. They destroyed themselves, I answer. I just showed them their reflection. Later, in my apartment overlooking the Danish coast, I open my laptop one last time. There's an email from an unknown sender, a photo of my old family home, now sold to cover Dad's legal fees. The subject line reads, "Missing you." I don't bother opening it. Instead, I look at my calendar for tomorrow. Meetings with investors, lunch with my team, dinner with new friends who never ask me for money or try to slip poison into my wine. My phone buzzes with a text from Lillian. Your father's sentencing is next week. Want the details? No, I reply. I'm done watching their destruction. Time to build something new. I close my laptop and walk to the window. The city lights sparkle like stars, each one representing a story, a struggle, maybe even a victory like mine. They say karma isn't always poetic. Sometimes it's prosaic, simple cause and effect, action and consequence. But sometimes karma wears your face, carries your determination, and delivers exactly the justice you fought for. And sometimes that's poetry enough.
The worst part about waking up from a coma isn't the pain or confusion, It's realizing that everything you thought was a nightmare is actually your new reality. I learned this the hard way 3 years ago, when I opened my eyes to find myself trapped in a body that felt like it belonged to someone else. My name is Natalie, and I was 26 when a drunk driver decided to play pinball with my Toyota Corolla on a rainy Tuesday evening. I remember fragments: the screech of tires, the metallic crunch of impact, and the strange, weightless feeling as my car rolled down the embankment. Then, nothing. "Welcome back, sweetheart," Mum's voice was the first thing I heard. She was perched beside my hospital bed, perfectly manicured as always, not a hair out of place. "We've been so worried." I tried to speak, but my throat felt like sandpaper. Dad appeared on my other side, pressing a cup of water to my lips. "Easy does it, kiddo. You've been out for almost 2 weeks. The next few days were a blur of doctors, tests, and devastating news. Multiple spinal fractures, severe nerve damage. The words partial paralysis and long-term rehabilitation floated around my room like unwelcome ghosts. But the good news, Dr. Harrison said, trying to sound optimistic, is that the driver's insurance is paying out a substantial settlement, $600,000 to cover your ongoing care and rehabilitation. Mum squeezed my hand. "We'll handle everything, sweetie. You just focus on getting better." I should have noticed the gleam in her eyes when she said that. My brother Quentin visited a week later, bringing his girlfriend Kayla and his usual larger-than-life presents. "Look who's finally awake," he boomed, making my head throb. "Man, sis, you really know how to get attention, don't you?" "Quentin," Dad warned, but there was no real authority in his voice. There never was when it came to my brother. "What? I'm just saying, it's kind of perfect timing. My new business venture is just taking off and—" "Not now." Mum cut him off, but they shared a look I couldn't quite read. My friend Lena, a lawyer I'd known since college, visited regularly. She helped me understand the settlement details, explaining everything in her calm, methodical way. "You need to be careful with this money, Nat," she said one afternoon when we were alone. "It needs to last." "Mum and Dad are handling it," I told her. "They've set up some kind of trust." Lena's expression tightened. "Let me add something to the paperwork, just in case." "In case of what?" She didn't answer directly, just squeezed my hand. "Trust me on this one." I didn't understand her concern then. I was too focused on the basics, learning to sit up without passing out, fighting through the nerve pain that felt like lightning through my legs, trying to accept that my pre-med dreams were probably over. My physical therapist, Lucia, became my lifeline. She pushed me hard, but knew exactly when to ease up. "Your body is healing," she'd say, "but your spirit needs to heal too." One evening, about a month after I woke up, Dad came to visit wearing his work coat despite the warm weather. As he hugged me awkwardly around the monitors, something fell from his pocket. A bank letter. I managed to snag it when he wasn't looking. The letter mentioned a disbursement adjustment to an account in Nevada. That was strange. We lived in Michigan, and as far as I knew, we had no connections to Nevada. "Everything okay?" Dad asked, noticing my expression. I forced a smile. "Just tired." "Hey, when can we start looking at those specialized therapy programs Dr. Harrison mentioned?" "Oh, well..." Dad suddenly became very interested in his phone. "Your mother's handling all that. We need to be strategic with the funds, you know. Make sure everything's properly invested." That night, I lay awake in my hospital bed, the letter's words burning in my mind. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't quite piece it together yet. I thought about Lena's cryptic warning, about Mom's endless deflections regarding the settlement money, about Quentin's new business venture. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother. "Great news. Just signed the lease on my new office space. Mom says you'll be so proud when you see what we've done with the investment." Investment. The word hit me like a second car crash. I stared at the ceiling, my hands clenching the scratchy hospital blanket. They wouldn't, I thought. They couldn't. But deep down, I already knew they had. Coming home felt like entering a funhouse mirror version of my old life. Everything looked almost right, but not quite. Mum had installed a basic metal ramp over the front steps, the cheapest model available according to the sticker still stuck to its underside. My bedroom had been moved to the first floor, into what used to be Dad's office. "We did our best with the modifications," Mum said, wheeling me inside. "The contractor wanted a fortune for those fancy grab bars and wider doorways, but we found some reasonable alternatives." Reasonable alternatives meant I could barely fit my wheelchair through the bathroom door, and reaching the sink was like solving a puzzle every morning. "When can we start the full renovation?" I asked during dinner that first night. Dr. Harrison said proper accessibility is crucial for— "Oh, honey," Mum interrupted, exchanging glances with Dad. "We need to be practical about expenses. There's not enough left for all that premium stuff." Not enough left? The words hit me like ice water. "But the settlement is being carefully managed," Dad said quickly, "for everyone's benefit." The next week, Quinton hosted a grand opening party for his new business venture, some kind of tech startup involving cryptocurrency and social media influencers. I couldn't follow his explanation, but I could certainly follow the money trail. The party was held at his new downtown office space, all gleaming glass and modern furniture. A champagne tower sparkled in the corner, and waiters circulated with expensive hors d'oeuvres. "Pretty impressive, right?" Kayla sidled up to my wheelchair, champagne flute in hand. "Quinton says the family support made all this possible. Isn't it amazing how everyone's coming together?" I forced a smile that felt like broken glass. "Yeah, amazing!" During my next physical therapy session, I couldn't focus. Lucia noticed immediately. "Your mind's somewhere else today," she said, helping me with my exercises. "Want to talk about it?" The whole story spilled out. The settlement, the mysterious bank transfers, Quinton's sudden prosperity. Lucia's hand stilled on my leg. "Natalie, you know you still have rights, right? That money was meant for your care." "I know," I whispered, "but what can I do? They're my family." "Family doesn't mean they own you." She hesitated. "And maybe you have more power than you think." That night, I called Lena for the first time since leaving the hospital. "I was wondering when you'd contact me," she said. "How much have they taken?" "I don't know exactly, but Quinton's new office alone must have cost— Send me everything you can find. Bank statements, transfer records, anything. And Natalie, remember that clause we added? It's still there, waiting." Before I could ask what she meant, Mum burst into my room without knocking. "Quinton's got a surprise for everyone," she announced. "Come to the driveway." There, gleaming under the streetlights, sat a brand new Porsche. Quinton was leaning against it, grinning like a game show host. "Pretty sweet, right?" he called out. "The business is really taking off. This is just the beginning." I watched as Mum and Dad fawned over the car, their faces glowing with pride. Kayla snapped photos for social media. No one seemed to notice, or care, that I had to park my wheelchair at an awkward angle just to see past them. Later, as everyone headed inside for celebratory drinks, I heard Dad and Quinton talking near the garage. "The insurance payment cleared?" Quinton asked. "Yeah, but we need to be more careful," Dad replied. "Let's just hope she never finds out." "Relax, she's not exactly in a position to do anything about it." I sat there in the darkness, my hands gripping my wheelchair's arms until my knuckles turned white. They thought I was helpless, weak, just a burden to be managed. That night, I sent Lena a text. "Tell me about this clause." Her response came immediately. "Come to my office tomorrow. It's time you learned about your insurance policy's fine print." I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling I could barely see through the darkness. The same ceiling my parents couldn't afford to install proper grab bars under, somehow. The house creaked and settled around me, and somewhere upstairs I could hear Quentin's muffled laughter. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Lena. By the way, keep every receipt, every bank statement, every email you can find. Document everything. Trust me. For the first time since the accident, I felt something other than pain and helplessness, something sharp and cold and clarifying. They thought they could steal my future because I couldn't walk. Fine. Let them think that. Let them think I was just their token disabled daughter, grateful for their scraps of attention and care. They had no idea what was coming. I decided to give them one chance to come clean. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I was wrong. I wheeled myself into the living room where Mom was arranging flowers, always keeping up appearances, and Dad was pretending to read the newspaper. We need to talk about the settlement money, I said quietly. The newspaper crinkled as Dad's hands tightened. Mom didn't turn around. What about it, sweetie? Her voice was honey-sweet, warning bells wrapped in sugar. Where is it? Mum finally turned, her smile perfect and practiced. It's being invested, dear, for the future of the family. My future, I corrected. It was meant for my care. And you're being cared for, aren't you? She gestured around the room. You have a roof over your head, food on the table, and a bathroom I can barely use. No proper therapy equipment. No, those things are expensive, Dad cut in. We had to make practical decisions. Like buying Quentin a Porsche? The room went silent. Mum's smile flickered, but held. Your brother's business ventures will benefit everyone, she said. The money will grow, and then we can look at those fancy modifications you want. When? Don't use that tone with your mother, Dad warned. I pulled out my phone where I documented everything. The settlement was deposited 4 months ago. Since then, there have been transfers to Nevada, payments to luxury car dealers, and $100,000 to Q Tech Ventures. Want to explain that? Mum's smile vanished. Have you been snooping through our papers? They're my papers, my money. You ungrateful little... Mum caught herself. After everything we've done for you. Done for me? You stole from me. We did not steal, Dad said firmly. We invested in Quentin, like always. As if summoned, my brother appeared in the doorway, Kayla hovering behind him. What's all the shouting about? He asked, though his smirk suggested he knew exactly what was happening. Your sister is being dramatic about money, Mum said. Again? Quentin rolled his eyes. You should be grateful you at least have a roof over your head. Do you know how expensive it is to take care of you? Not as expensive as your car payments, I shot back. That car is a business investment, he sneered. Something you wouldn't understand sitting around all day. I sit around all day because I can't afford the therapy I need. Oh, here we go with the guilt trip. Quentin threw up his hands. You know what? You're lucky we didn't put you in a home. Most families wouldn't deal with this burden. Mom didn't even scold him for saying it. She just stood there, arranging her stupid flowers. I pulled out my phone again and started recording. So, just to be clear, you all think it's okay to use my settlement money meant for my medical care, to fund Quentin's business? We're not having this conversation, Dad said. Why not? Afraid of saying it out loud? The money is tied up in promising ventures, Mum insisted. Everything we've done is for this family's future. My future matters too. Your future is secure, Dad said. You have us. I laughed, and it wasn't a happy sound. Yeah, I have you. Taking my money, treating me like a burden, and expecting me to be grateful for it. Later that night, I heard them arguing upstairs. I wheeled closer to the stairs, recording on my phone. She's getting suspicious, Dad was saying. We need to fix this before she finds out everything. Fix what? Mum snapped. Why, we did what we had to do. Quinton needed the capital, and she wasn't using the money anyway. It was supposed to be for her care. She has care. Basic care is enough. Quinton has real potential. He just needs support to succeed. I sent the recording to Lena immediately. Her response came quickly. Perfect. Keep gathering evidence. The trap is almost ready. I glanced at Dad's tablet, left carelessly on the coffee table. He never was good with technology or passwords. 3 tries later, I was in his email. There it was. A transfer receipt from my trust fund to Quinton's personal account. $200,000 labelled as family investment. I forwarded it to Lena, then wheeled myself back to my room. Through the wall, I could hear Quinton and Kayla laughing about something in the kitchen, probably planning their next vacation with my money. Just wait, I whispered to myself. Keep laughing, keep spending, keep thinking you've won, because Lena was right. The trap was almost ready, and none of them saw it coming. You're pushing yourself too hard, Lucia said during our therapy session, but I could tell she was impressed. 3 sets yesterday? 4 today? I need them to think I'm getting weaker, I explained, powering through another rep. The more helpless they think I am, the less they'll suspect. Lucia checked that the door was closed before speaking. Lena called me, asked if I'd testify about your reduced therapy schedule and the impact it's having on your recovery. Will you? She squeezed my shoulder. Every damn word will be true. At home, I played my part perfectly. I dropped things more often, asked for help with basic tasks, acted increasingly dependent. Mum ate it up, cooing over me like I was a child. See? She told Dad one evening. She's doing fine with the basic care. We made the right choice. I recorded that too. Lena's office was my sanctuary. We met weekly, building our case piece by piece. The clause is beautiful in its simplicity, she explained, spreading papers across her desk. If fraudulent use of settlement funds is proven, the court can authorize seizure of any asset used as collateral in the trust agreement. And what asset was that? Her smile was razor-sharp. Your parents' house. They signed it over as guarantee when they became trustees. Probably didn't even read the fine print. They never do, I said. They're too used to being in control. Right on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Mum. Quinton's hosting an investor meeting at the house tonight. Please stay in your room. We need to make a good impression. I showed Lena the message. She started typing on her computer. Perfect timing, she said, because guess what your brother's investors don't know? His company's being funded with stolen medical settlement money. One anonymous tip to the SEC and... Not yet, I said. We need one more piece. That night, I pretended to sleep through the investor meeting, but my phone was recording everything through the thin walls. The initial capital came from family support, Quinton was saying. We believe in investing in our own. Substantial investment, someone commented. Family must really believe in you. Oh, they do, Quinton laughed. Let's just say we had a windfall, and we knew exactly how to put it to good use. The next morning, Mum and Dad were huddled in the kitchen, talking in low voices. We need another 100,000, Dad was saying. The first round investors want to see more skin in the game. We can take out a second mortgage, Mum suggested. The house has plenty of equity. I wheeled myself to Lucia's office instead of our usual therapy room. They're going to take out another loan, I told her, using the house as collateral. The same house that's already collateral for your trust, she said, understanding immediately. Does Lena know? Texted her on the way here. She says it's perfect. The more debt they pile on, the harder they'll fall. I worked extra hard in therapy that day, but made sure to wince and struggle when Mum picked me up. Maybe we should scale back the sessions, she suggested, watching me fake grimace as I transferred to the car. They're clearly too much for you. Whatever you think is best, Mom. At home, I found Dad's tablet again. This time, there was an email thread about the new loan application. He'd even attached a photo of his driver's license for verification. I forwarded everything to Lena. Her response was immediate. Got it. All the pieces are in place. Ready when you are. I looked around the house. The house they'd signed away without reading the fine print. The house they were about to borrow against, not knowing it was already forfeit. My phone buzzed again. Mum, Quinton's investors loved the presentation. They're going to fund his next phase. All our sacrifices are finally paying off. I wheeled myself to the window, watching Mum and Dad help Quinton load presentation materials into his Porsche. They were laughing, celebrating another win for their golden boy. Hey, sis, Quinton called out, seeing me at the window. Thanks for staying quiet last night. Wouldn't want your wheelchair ramps ruining the aesthetic, right? I smiled and waved. Let them think I was the grateful, quiet daughter. Let them think I was weak. I opened my laptop and typed a single email to Lena. Do it. Her reply came seconds later. Papers will be filed in the morning. Are you sure you're ready? I looked at my reflection in the window. The daughter they thought they could steal from. The sister they thought they could silence. The woman they thought they had broken. I'm ready. The trap was set, and tomorrow it would snap shut. The bank liaison arrived at exactly 9:06 a.m., her heels clicking on our front walkway. I watched through the window as Mum opened the door, perfect hostess smile in place. Mrs. Boyd, I'm Amanda Torres from First National. I'm here about the property inspection. Mum's smile flickered. Property inspection? We haven't scheduled anything. It's a standard procedure before asset seizure, Amanda explained, consulting her tablet. As per the court filing this morning. Court filing? There must be some mistake. I wheeled myself into the foyer. No mistake, Mom. The colour drained from her face. Natalie, what did you do? I protected my future, since you wouldn't. Dad emerged from his study, drawn by the commotion. What's going on? Sir, Amanda said, I need to document the current state of the property. The court has authorised an inspection in preparation for potential seizure under Trust Violation Clause 247B. Trust violation? Dad's voice went up an octave. What trust violation? The one you triggered when you stole my settlement money, I said quietly. Remember that paperwork you signed without reading? The house was collateral. Mum's perfect mask cracked. You can't do this. We're your parents. Parents don't steal from their disabled daughter. We didn't steal, Mum shrieked. We invested in Quinton's failed businesses, in his Porsche, in everything except my care. Amanda cleared her throat. I need to begin the inspection. Please don't remove any fixtures or make any alterations to the property. As if on cue, Quinton burst through the front door. What's this about a court filing? My investors are freaking out. Your sister, Mum spat, is trying to take our house. Not trying, I corrected. Taking, legally, just like you took my future. Quinton advanced on my wheelchair. You ungrateful little... I wouldn't, a new voice said. My cousin Darnell stood in the doorway, his massive frame blocking the light. Step away from her. This is family business, Quinton snapped. Darnell's smile was cold. Exactly why I'm here. Family. Mum turned to me, switching tactics. Her voice went soft, pleading. Sweetheart, be reasonable. Think about what this will do to our reputation, to the family name. Should have thought about that before you emptied my trust fund. We can fix this, Dad said desperately. We'll take out a loan, replace the money. With what collateral? I asked. The house you already signed away? Or maybe Quinton's Porsche? Amanda continued her inspection, taking photos and measurements, seemingly oblivious to the family drama unfolding around her. "This will kill your mother," Dad tried again. Like making me skip therapy sessions didn't kill me. Like watching Quentin blow my care money on crypto didn't kill me. "You're being dramatic," Quentin scoffed. I pulled out my phone. "Really? Let's hear what you all have to say about it." I pressed play. Mum's voice filled the room. She wasn't using the money anyway. Then Dad's, "We need to fix this before she finds out everything." And finally, Quentin's drunken boast to his investors. "Let's just say we had a windfall, and we knew exactly how to put it to good use." The room fell silent except for Amanda's clicking camera and tapping keyboard. "You recorded us," Mum whispered. "I learned from the best, Mum. Always keep evidence, right? Isn't that what you taught me?" "The inspection is complete," Amanda announced. "You'll receive formal documentation within 3 business days. Please remember, no alterations to the property." As she left, Darnell moved to stand behind my wheelchair. A silent guardian. "You have 30 days, I said quietly. "The court will give you 30 days to vacate." "You can't be serious," Quentin laughed, but there was fear in his eyes. "Where are we supposed to go? Maybe sell the Porsche? I hear those crypto investments aren't doing so well anyway." Mum collapsed onto the stairs, her perfect posture finally breaking. "Please, Natalie, be reasonable. We can talk about this. Like you talked to me about spending my settlement. Like you talked to me about cutting my therapy. Like you talked to me about anything." Dad just stood there looking old and deflated. "We thought we were doing the right thing." "No," I said, wheeling myself towards my room. "You thought I was too weak to fight back. That's a very different thing." "This isn't over," Quentin called after me. I stopped and turned. "Actually, it is. Check your investor emails. Turns out the SEC is very interested in medical settlement money being used for unauthorized business ventures." As I closed my door, I heard Mum start to cry. Not her usual manipulative tears, but real, broken sobs. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The court order arrived on a Tuesday morning. Mum refused to open it, so Dad did, his hand shaking as he broke the seal. 30 days, he confirmed, voice hollow. "They're giving us 30 days to vacate." Quentin stormed in, waving his phone. "My accounts are frozen. All of them. What did you do?" "Me?" I raised an eyebrow. "I didn't do anything. But it turns out using fraudulently obtained medical settlement money for business ventures is illegal. Who knew?" "You've ruined everything," he shouted. "My investors are pulling out. Kayla's talking about taking a break. The SEC is..." "The SEC is what?" I interrupted. "Investigating where your startup capital came from? Funny how that works." Mom appeared in the doorway, looking like she'd aged 10 years overnight. "I just got off the phone with the country club. They've suspended our membership pending the legal situation." "Not the country club," I gasped mockingly. "However will we survive?" "You're killing your mother's spirit," she whispered. "No, Mom, you killed mine first, multiple times. Every time you chose Quentin over my health." A loud banging from upstairs made us all jump. Darnell, who'd appointed himself my unofficial bodyguard, appeared at the top of the stairs. "Your brother's girlfriend is clearing out her stuff," he reported, "and taking some family jewelry with her." "What?" Mum ran upstairs, her social disgrace temporarily forgotten. Quentin's face went pale. "She wouldn't..." "Oh, but she did," Darnell smiled. "I watched her pack up your grandmother's pearls and that vintage Rolex. Said something about compensation for wasted time." "Those weren't hers to take," Mum's voice shrieked from above. "Like my settlement it wasn't yours to take," I called back. Dad sank into a chair, looking defeated. "Natalie, please, we can work something out. The house has been in the family for generations." Should have thought about that before you signed it away. Did you even read the trust agreement? His silence was answer enough. Quentin paced the room like a caged animal. This is just spite, pure spite. No, I corrected him. This is consequences. Remember when you said I should be grateful you didn't put me in a home, that I was lucky to have a roof over my head? Well, now it's my roof. The doorbell rang. Darnell answered it to find Lena standing there with a contractor. Hope you don't mind, she said brightly, walking in. We're just here to measure for the renovations. Full accessibility upgrade, proper wheelchair ramps, modified bathroom fixtures. You can't do this, Mum said, coming back downstairs. We haven't even moved out yet. Just planning ahead, Lena replied. 30 days goes by quickly. The contractor moved through the house, taking measurements and making notes. He passed Quentin's room just as Kayla emerged, dragging a heavy suitcase. Keep the Rolex, she spat at him. Sell it! You'll need the money more than me. Mum followed her, pleading. Kayla, dear, those are family heirlooms. Family? Kayla laughed bitterly. You mean the family that stole from their own daughter? The family that's about to be homeless? No thanks. I'm out. She stormed past us all, the front door slamming behind her. Dad finally spoke up, his voice broken. I'm sorry, Natalie. I should have stopped this. Should have protected you. But you didn't, I said quietly. You never did. What do you want? Mom asked. Money? We'll find a way to pay you back. I want what was already mine. My settlement, my independence, my future. And our future? Quentin demanded. Where are we supposed to go? Maybe try one of those budget apartments you said would be good enough for me. The ones you suggested when you wanted to sell this house for your business? The contractor finished his measurements and approached me. We can start work in about 5 weeks. Full accessibility throughout. Therapy room in the converted bedroom, everything up to medical code. Perfect, I said. That's exactly what the settlement was meant for in the first place. Mum started crying again, but I'd grown immune to her tears. They were just water now, not guilt. Lena touched my shoulder. Need anything else today? I looked around at my family. Mum's mascara-streaked face, Dad's defeated slump, Quentin's impotent rage, the people who thought they could steal my future because I couldn't walk. No, I said. I think everything's exactly where it should be. The contractor's pencil scratched against his notepad, measuring out my new future in inches and feet. Every mark was a victory, every number a step toward independence. They had taken everything from me. Now I was taking it back. Moving day arrived with a grey sky and scattered rain. I watched from the front window as Dad loaded boxes into their rented U-Haul. Mum hadn't emerged from the house yet, still making a show of her devastation. Need help with that? Darnell called out to Dad, who was struggling with a heavy box. We don't need your charity, Mum snapped, finally appearing with her designer handbag clutched like a shield. Wasn't offering any, Darnell replied smoothly. Just thought you might want to avoid dropping your precious china. Quentin appeared last, carrying only a small duffel bag. His Porsche was already gone, sold to cover legal fees and investor paybacks. Happy now? He asked, glaring at me. Got your revenge? This isn't revenge, I said. This is justice. Keep telling yourself that. He kicked a box viciously. You've destroyed this family. No, you all did that when you stole from me. Mom approached my wheelchair, making one last attempt. Sweetheart, there's still time to reconsider. Think about what you're doing. Think about motherly love. Motherly love? I cut her off. Was it motherly love when you cancelled my therapy sessions to pay for Quentin's office furniture? Was it motherly love when you watched me struggle in a bathroom I could barely use while spending my settlement on his failed ventures? We were trying to secure everyone's future, No, you were betting my future on Quentin's dreams. How'd that work out? Dad paused in his loading. Natalie, please. Your mother's heart. Don't, I warned. Don't you dare make me the villain here. You had choices. You made them. These are the consequences. Lucia arrived then, carrying supplies for our afternoon therapy session. She'd be using the newly converted bedroom, my old bedroom, as a proper therapy space. Perfect timing, I said. You can help me check out the renovations. This is still our home, Mum protested weakly. Not anymore, Lena said, appearing with the final paperwork. As of noon today, the property transfers fully to Natalie. You need to be out by 2 p.m. Mum collapsed onto a chair, one of the few pieces of furniture remaining. Where did we go wrong? You want the list chronologically or alphabetically? I asked. You harbour such hate in your heart, she whispered. No, Mom, this isn't hate. This is balance. This is what happens when you treat your daughter like an ATM and expect her to thank you for it. Quentin stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Through the glass, I watched him walk away. No car to drive off in, no girlfriend to run to, no investors to bail him out. Dad finished loading the last box. The apartment's not much, but we'll manage. Like I had to manage? I asked, with inadequate care and empty promises. He looked at me for a long moment. I failed you. I see that now. Yes, you did. I'm sorry. I know, but sorry doesn't pay for the therapy I missed or the independence you stole. Mom finally stood, straightening her designer clothes, probably the last ones she'd be able to afford for a while. This house has been in our family for generations. And now it's in my part of the family, I said. The part you forgot about while chasing Quentin's dreams. They left quietly after that, the U-Haul coughing to life in the driveway. I watched them pull away, Mom not looking back, Dad checking the rearview mirror one last time. Lucia wheeled me through the house, now fitted with proper ramps, wider doorways, and all the modifications that should have been done months ago. How does it feel? She asked. Like justice. Darnell started bringing in my new medical equipment, a proper therapy table, exercise machines, everything the settlement should have bought in the first place. The mail arrived as we were setting up. Among the envelopes was a letter from a funeral home. I opened it with trembling fingers. Your Aunt Margaret passed last week, Lena explained, having known about it already. She left you something. Inside was a notice of inheritance, a second chance at security, but there was a condition, full severance of ties with Mom. She knew, I whispered. Aunt Margaret knew what they were doing. What are you going to do? Lucia asked. I looked around my house, truly mine now, set up for my needs, not their greed. The therapy room waited, properly equipped. The accessible bathroom gleamed. Everything was as it should have been from the start. I lit a candle in the window, watching the flame flicker. The inheritance letter waited for my answer, but I wasn't ready to give it. Not yet. Some choices, I'd learned, deserved time to breathe. The autumn wind rustled through my newly installed automatic doors as I wheeled into my home office. My laptop displayed a fresh email from Lena. Another update about Quentin's legal troubles. The SEC investigation had expanded, and his investors were filing their own lawsuits. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Your brother might have to declare bankruptcy. Please, we need help. I set the phone down without replying. The last 3 messages had been similar. Pleas for money, attempts at guilt, desperate bargaining. The doorbell rang. Darnell answered it, then called out, It's Lucia, and someone else. I wheeled into the living room to find Lucia standing with a young woman in a wheelchair. This is Sarah, Lucia said. Remember how we talked about using part of the house as a therapy centre for others? Sarah smiled nervously. I heard what you did, standing up to your family like that. It gave me courage to fight my own insurance battle. Before I could respond, another text came through, this time from Dad. Saw your interview in the Disability Rights newsletter. Proud of you. I know that doesn't make up for anything. He was right. It didn't. Come on, I told Sarah, leading her to the therapy room. Let me show you what proper accessibility looks like. As Lucia started their session, I wheeled to my office to finish some work. I'd found a remote position in patient advocacy, helping others navigate the medical system I'd learned to fight. The mail arrived, another letter from the funeral home about Aunt Margaret's inheritance. The deadline for accepting the conditions was approaching. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Through the security camera, I saw Kayla standing there, shifting nervously. What do you want? I asked through the intercom. To apologise, she said, and to return something. I let her in. She placed Grandma's pearls on my desk. I was angry, she explained, at Quinton, at your parents, at everyone, but taking these was wrong. Why return them now? Because I saw your interview too, about fighting for what's rightfully yours. Made me realise I was just being spiteful. Unlike them, you chose to make it right. She nodded. Quinton's working at an insurance company now. Entry level. Your mum's selling her designer clothes online. Your dad... She hesitated. He's actually going to therapy. Says he needs to understand why he failed you. I hadn't known that last part. After she left, I called Lena. I've made a decision about Aunt Margaret's inheritance, I told her. And I'm accepting it. But I want to use part of it to start a foundation. For others like me, people fighting for their right to proper care. Your mother won't like being cut off officially. My mother stopped having a say in my life when she chose Quinton's dreams over my needs. That evening, as Sarah finished her therapy session, she paused by my desk. Thank you, she said, not just for sharing your space, but for showing me that fighting back isn't wrong. I thought about Mum's texts, Dad's therapy sessions, Quinton's new humble life, and Kayla's returned pearls. Fighting back isn't wrong, I agreed, but neither is moving forward. I picked up my phone and typed a response to Dad. Proud isn't enough, but change might be a start. Then I wheeled myself to the front window, the same window where I'd once watched helplessly as they spent my future. Now I watched Sarah navigate her wheelchair down my properly graded ramp, heading toward her own future, stronger for having seen mine. Lucia appeared beside me. Ready for your session? Actually, I said, I think I'm ready for everything. I signed the inheritance acceptance papers that evening, adding my foundation plans as a codicil. Aunt Margaret would have appreciated that, using money to help others fight back, to claim their rights, to demand better. The house creaked softly around me, but it wasn't the sound of secrets anymore. It was the sound of justice, of consequences, of strength. My phone lit up one last time, a text from an unknown number. Saw your interview. I'm fighting my parents too. They think my disability means they can control my settlement. Can you help? I smiled and typed back, yes, and I know exactly where to start. Because that's what justice looks like. Not just winning your own fight, but helping others win theirs. I never wanted revenge. I wanted what they stole from me. Control over my own future. Turns out, getting the house back was just the beginning.
The notification sound pierced through the clatter of pots and pans in my kitchen. Another message I'd normally ignore while perfecting my latest creation. A delicate fusion of French and Vietnamese cuisines that had consumed my evenings for weeks. But Jenna never texted during prep hours unless it was urgent. I wiped my hands on my apron and clicked the link she'd sent. The video started playing, and my world tilted sideways. There, in pristine 4K resolution, was my dish. My exact dish. Every element I'd labored over for months. The lemongrass-infused beurre blanc, the precise arrangement of micro-herbs, Even the damn diagonal score marks on the seared duck breast. All of it presented with flourish by none other than Chef Elliot Granger, introducing our newest addition to the spring menu. His voice boomed through my phone's speakers. A contemporary take on classic French cuisine with Asian influences. My knife clattered to the floor. The sound barely registered as I watched him describe my techniques, my flavor combinations, my vision, as if they'd sprung fully formed from his own mind. The video had already racked up thousands of views, with comments praising his innovative genius. That backstabbing piece of... I caught myself, remembering my sister Olivia's voice. You're just jealous because Marcus actually made something of himself. Marcus, her precious boyfriend who'd been hanging around my experimental cooking sessions, asking questions, taking notes. I'd thought he was genuinely interested. Turns out he was just mining for ideas to pass along to his boss. My phone buzzed again. Jenna, tell me you're seeing this. Call me now. Instead, I called Olivia. Each ring felt like a hammer blow to my chest. She answered on the fourth. What's up, Peyton? I'm kind of in the middle of something. Is Marcus with you? Yeah, we're actually celebrating. He just got promoted to... Did you know? My voice came out steadier than I felt. About my recipe? A pause. Too long. What recipe? Don't play dumb, Olivia. The fusion dish that just went viral on Chef Granger's channel. The one Marcus watched me develop for weeks. Oh my God, are you serious right now? Her laugh felt like acid in my ears. Just because someone came up with something similar? Similar? It's identical, down to the plating technique I created. Listen to yourself, she said, her voice dripping with that familiar condescension. Chef Granger is a culinary genius. Why would he need to steal recipes from someone who can't even get hired at a decent restaurant? The words hit their mark with surgical precision. Behind her, I heard Marcus's muffled voice. Is that your sister? Tell her I loved her original version of the dish. My blood froze. In those few words, he'd admitted everything and made sure I knew he'd admitted it, while remaining completely protected. After all, who would believe my word against Chef Granger's rising star? You know what? I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. You're right. I must be imagining things. Enjoy your celebration. I ended the call and stared at my kitchen counter, where my notes and sketches for the dish lay scattered. 6 months of experimentation, of failure and refinement, of pushing boundaries and finding my voice as a chef. All of it stolen in an instant. My phone lit up again. Jenna? Calling this time. I let it ring as I picked up my fallen knife, testing its weight in my hand. The blade caught the kitchen light, and in its reflection, I saw something shift in my eyes. A hardening. A decision. They thought they could steal my work and dismiss me as a jealous failure? Fine. But they were about to learn something about me that even my sister had forgotten. I'd always been at my most dangerous in the kitchen. Sunday family dinners were sacred to my father, which made them the perfect battlefield. I arrived early, carrying a bottle of wine I couldn't afford, and the weight of yesterday's betrayal like lead in my stomach. There's my girl. Mom pulled me into a hug that smelled of rosemary and anxiety. Your father's grilling steaks, and Olivia's bringing Marcus. Isn't that wonderful? I forced a smile. Wonderful. The kitchen counter was already lined with appetizers, all store-bought. Mom had given up trying to compete with her daughter's culinary abilities years ago. I uncorked the wine, poured myself a generous glass, and watched her flutter around the kitchen like a nervous bird. About that video that's going around, she started, not quite meeting my eyes. Your father thinks... The front door burst open, bringing with it Olivia's laugh and Marcus's smooth baritone. Perfect timing, as always. Something smells amazing. Olivia breezed in, Marcus close behind. She was wearing the dress I'd complimented last month, the one she'd said wasn't really her style. Daddy, those steaks better be medium rare. Marcus caught my eye and had the audacity to wink. Peyton, great to see you. Been experimenting with any new recipes lately? My wine glass creaked in my grip. Before I could respond, Dad appeared from the patio, tongs in hand like a scepter. "Marcus, my boy, heard about the promotion. Moving up fast at Granger's place, aren't you?" "Hard work pays off, sir." Marcus's modesty was as practiced as his knife skills, and about as genuine. Speaking of which, I set my glass down carefully. I saw Chef Granger's new video. Fascinating technique with that fusion dish. The room's temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Olivia's smile tightened. "Peyton, we talked about this. Did we? Because I remember you hanging up on me." "Girls," Mom interjected, "let's not—" "Actually," I continued, pulling out my phone, "I'd love everyone's opinion. I have some videos of my own, from 3 months ago, showing the exact same—" "Enough!" Dad's voice cracked like a whip. "I won't have you embarrassing this family with baseless accusations. Marcus has worked hard to get where he is. Worked hard stealing my recipes." "Jesus, Peyton." Olivia rolled her eyes. "Not everything is about you. Maybe if you spent less time being paranoid and more time actually pursuing your career, like you pursued yours?" The words escaped before I could stop them. "Remind me, how many times did you change majors before deciding to find yourself on Instagram?" Olivia's face flushed. Marcus stepped forward, ever the protective boyfriend. "Look, I understand you're frustrated with your career progression, but don't." My voice was ice. "Don't you dare patronize me. Peyton Reynolds." Dad set the tongs down with deliberate care. "You will apologize to your sister and Marcus right now." I looked around the kitchen. At Mom's pleading eyes, Dad's stern disappointment, Olivia's practiced hurt, and Marcus's subtle smirk. The familiar choreography of family dynamics, where I was always cast as the difficult one, the jealous one, the one who needed to try harder to fit in. "You know what?" I reached for my purse. "I'm not hungry. If you walk out that door," Dad warned, Don't expect what? Support? Understanding? When have I ever gotten those here?" Olivia's voice turned sickeningly sweet. "You're just proving everyone's point about your attitude, sis." I paused at the door, turning back one last time. "You know, Marcus, the funny thing about stealing recipes? The person who created them knows exactly what makes them work, and what tiny changes could make them fail spectacularly." His smirk faltered, just slightly. Message received. "Peyton," Mom called after me, but I was already gone, the spring evening wrapping around me like a shield. My phone buzzed. "Jenna." "How'd it go?" I typed back. "Time for plan B." Because here's the thing about being the family disappointment. Once you've got nothing left to lose, you've got everything to gain. And I was done playing nice. Jenna's apartment smelled like coffee and determination at midnight. She spread printouts across her dining table, screenshots, social media posts, and dated photographs of my original recipe development process. "Look at this." She pointed to a series of Instagram stories from Marcus's account. "He's been documenting your techniques for months, just changing small details in the presentation." My fingers traced the timestamps. That's the day he asked about my Vietnamese caramel technique. Said it was for a friend's dinner party. More like for his promotion pitch. Jenna pulled up Chef Granger's restaurant website. 3 of your fusion concepts are already on their spring menu. Different names, same core recipes. The betrayal felt fresh again, like a knife twisting deeper. I trusted him. Even when Olivia started bringing him to family dinners, I thought... I stopped, remembering how he'd praise my experimental dishes while taking notes on his phone. Jenna's phone buzzed. Her expression shifted as she read the message. "Speaking of your sister, you need to see this." It was a promotional video for Granger's restaurant. Marcus stood in the pristine kitchen describing his innovative approach to fusion cuisine while preparing my lemongrass-infused beurre blanc. But it was the comment below that made my blood boil. Olivia had written, "So proud of my talented boyfriend. Always knew you'd revolutionize the culinary scene." Culinary genius. "She knows," I whispered. "She has to know those are my recipes. Wait, there's more." Jenna scrolled through her messages. My friend at the restaurant says Marcus is hosting a private tasting next week. Apparently, Chef Granger is bringing potential investors. I stood up, pacing Jenna's small living room. He's building his entire career on my work, and my family, they're all just celebrating it. Then let's end the celebration. Jenna's voice had that dangerous edge I recognized from our culinary school days. I can get you into that tasting. How? I manage 3 high-end restaurants. I know people who know people. She grinned. Plus, I might have already convinced my friend to add 2 names to the guest list. My heart raced with possibility. Even if we get in, what's the plan? Stand up and accuse him in front of everyone? Better. Jenna pulled out one final document, a dated email chain between Marcus and several suppliers, discussing ingredients specific to my recipes. We prove it, systematically, publicly, and... She hesitated. What? I didn't want to show you this yet, but... She pulled up a draft announcement from Granger's PR team. Marcus is being promoted to head chef of their new fusion concept restaurant. The whole menu... Peyton, it's all your creations. The room spun slightly. I gripped the back of a chair, my knuckles white. When? The announcement goes live next week, after the investor tasting. My phone lit up. A text from Mom. Please call. Your father wants to apologize. Marcus is helping plan a special family dinner to make things right. Another knife twist. Another manipulation. Jenna, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Remember that molecular gastronomy experiment we did in 2nd year? The one that nearly got us expelled? She raised an eyebrow. The one where we proved our professor's signature technique was stolen from that Japanese chef? Exactly. I picked up one of Marcus's Instagram posts, a perfect image of my dish, tagged with his lies. Time to conduct another experiment. You know this could blow up in our faces. Jenna warned, but she was already reaching for her laptop. Your family already chose their side. I sat down, pulling the evidence closer. Marcus wants to be known for my recipes? Fine. Let's show everyone exactly how well he understands them. Because here's the thing about stealing someone's culinary creations. You need to understand the science behind them. The precise chemical reactions. The exact timing. The subtle balances that make the difference between triumph and disaster. And I was about to give Marcus the chemistry lesson of his life. The kitchen at Granger's felt different at night. Empty, except for Marcus and me, with only the hum of industrial refrigerators breaking the silence. He'd agreed to meet after service hours, probably thinking he could charm or intimidate me into silence. You look tired, Peyton. He wiped down his station with practiced efficiency. Still working on those pop-up dinners nobody attends? I placed my phone on the counter, recording app running. Let's skip the small talk. I want you to admit what you did. What I did? His laugh echoed off stainless steel surfaces. You mean succeed? Build a career? Make your sister happy? You stole my recipes, my techniques, my entire culinary vision. He set down his cloth, finally meeting my eyes. Prove it. I pulled out my development notebook, filled with dated entries, sketches, and precise measurements. Happy to. Page 37, the exact ratio for the lemongrass beurre blanc you're so proud of. Written 3 months before you ever created it. Something flickered across his face. Not guilt, but calculation. You know what's funny? Olivia mentioned you used to keep journals like this in high school, too. Always convinced someone was stealing your spotlight. The casual mention of my sister hit its mark. Leave her out of this. Why, she's as much a part of this as anyone. He moved closer, voice dropping. You think she doesn't know? She's seen your kitchen experiments for years. She knows exactly where these recipes came from. My throat tightened. You're lying. Am I? Who do you think suggested I pay attention to your cooking in the first place? His smile turned cruel. She knew you'd never do anything with these recipes yourself. Too scared of failure, too worried about perfection. She said it would be a shame to let all that talent go to waste. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the counter edge. Olivia wouldn't what? Support her boyfriend's career? Choose success over her sister's hobby? He shrugged. Face it, Peyton. You were never going to use these recipes. I did them justice, made them worth something. By stealing them. By improving them, adding refinement, professional polish. He picked up my notebook, flipping through it casually. You want to expose me? Go ahead. But remember, your sister's reputation goes down with mine. And your parents? They'll never forgive you for destroying both their daughters' lives. I reached for my notebook, but he held it away. That's not your property, actually. He tore out several pages in one smooth motion. I think these belong to Granger's now. Part of my employment contract. All recipes developed while working here belong to the restaurant. I never worked here. But I did. And these? He waved the pages. These are my interpretations of classic fusion techniques. Your notebook? Just research notes. Anyone could see that. My hands shook. Give them back. Or what? You'll tell everyone the truth? He stepped closer, voice soft but sharp. Nobody will believe you, Peyton. They already think you're jealous and unstable. One more accusation, and you'll lose whatever credibility you have left. The worst part wasn't his words. It was knowing he might be right. I could see it playing out. My parents taking his side, Olivia's tearful denials, my reputation in tatters. You have two choices, he continued. Walk away now. Let this go and maybe salvage your relationship with your family. Or push this, lose everything, and watch me succeed anyway. He held out the torn pages. Your call. I stared at my recipes in his hand. My work, my passion, my future. Then I turned and walked out, leaving both the pages and my phone behind. In the parking lot, Jenna waited in her car. Did you get it? I slid into the passenger seat, hands still shaking. Every word. The backup recording app on your old phone caught everything. Including the part about stealing your intellectual property and Olivia's involvement? I nodded, the weight of betrayal settling deeper. He was right about one thing. This will destroy my family. Maybe. Jenna started the car. Some things need to be destroyed before they can be rebuilt. We drove in silence, the night wrapping around us like a shroud. I'd wanted evidence, closure, maybe even an apology. Instead, I'd gotten confirmation that my sister had orchestrated my betrayal from the start. Time for Plan C. The invitation arrived in a cream envelope embossed with Granger's logo. Inside, gold lettering announced Marcus's promotion celebration and tasting menu. 6 courses of my stolen recipes, served to the city's culinary elite. My sister's handwriting graced the bottom. Please come. We need to talk. I dropped the invitation on Jenna's desk. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. She examined the menu descriptions. These are definitely your dishes. But look, he's modified the Vietnamese caramel sauce. Simplified it. Because he never understood the proper temperature control. I pulled up the recording from our confrontation. We have enough evidence. Why wait? Because timing is everything. Jenna tapped the invitation. And this is perfect. Every food critic and investor in the city will be there. Plus, she hesitated. What? Chef Granger just announced he's opening 3 new restaurants. Marcus is set to head the flagship location. My fingers curled into fists. Using my recipes. There's more. She pulled up an email on her screen. The Restaurant Association is considering him for Rising Star Chef. The nomination mentioned his innovative fusion techniques. The room seemed to shrink. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd created, being handed to him on a silver platter. And my sister had helped orchestrate it all. My phone buzzed. Olivia. Got my note? We should clear the air before the event. Coffee tomorrow? Don't, Jenna warned, reading over my shoulder. She'll just try to manipulate you again. Maybe I want to hear her explain why she betrayed me. The words tasted bitter. Or maybe you need to focus on the plan. Jenna pulled out a notebook. The tasting menu gives us exactly what we need. He's serving your most complex dishes to the most discerning palates in the city. Understanding dawned. And he doesn't know all the technical details. Exactly. One small mistake in temperature or timing could ruin everything. I stared at the invitation. But the evidence will matter more after he publicly fails. Jenna's eyes gleamed. Think about it. Right now, it's your word against his. But if he can't replicate your techniques in front of everyone... My phone buzzed again. Mom this time. Your father and I are so proud of Marcus. Please don't cause a scene at the event. Of course. They assumed I'd come to make trouble, not that I'd been invited to witness my own public humiliation. You know what happens if this goes wrong, I said quietly. It's not just Marcus I'll be exposing. I know. Jenna's voice softened. But they made their choices. Now you need to make yours. I picked up the invitation again, running my finger over Olivia's handwriting. My little sister, who used to sneak into my room late at night to taste test my experiments, who once said I was the only person who really saw her. Another message lit up my phone. Marcus, looking forward to showing everyone what real innovation looks like. Hope you can handle watching from the audience for once. Something cold and certain settled in my chest. Get me the guest list, I told Jenna, and find out which suppliers they're using. Already done? She pulled out another file. The question is, are you ready? This isn't just about exposing a recipe thief anymore. No, it wasn't. It was about years of being overlooked, of having my passion dismissed as a hobby. About a sister who saw my talent as something to exploit rather than celebrate. About parents who chose comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. I opened my recipe notebook, the real one, not the decoy Marcus had torn apart, and began to write. Every crucial temperature, every precise timing, every chemical reaction that made my dishes work. And more importantly, what would make them fail spectacularly. Send my RSVP, I said, not looking up. Tell them I wouldn't miss it for the world. Because here's the thing about revenge served cold. Sometimes you need to let it simmer first, reducing down to its most potent form. And I was done being the only one who could taste the bitterness. Granger's dining room hummed with anticipation. Crystal glasses caught the light. White tablecloths stretched like fresh snow. And somewhere in the kitchen, Marcus was about to serve my life's work to the city's culinary elite. I adjusted my blazer, feeling the weight of the USB drive in my pocket. Beside me, Jenna scanned the room with practiced eyes. Food critics at 3 o'clock, restaurant investors by the window, and your family. Front and center. Of course they were. Mom in her best pearls, Dad beaming with borrowed pride, and Olivia practically glowing as she worked the room. The perfect supporting cast for Marcus's moment of triumph. Chef Granger took the small stage, champagne in hand. Tonight we celebrate not just a promotion, but a vision. Marcus Bennett represents the future of fusion cuisine. The first course arrived, my lemongrass soup, but something was off. The aromatics were muted, the balance slightly wrong. Marcus had rushed the infusion process just as I'd predicted. Critics exchanged glances. Spoons hesitated midair. But before anyone could comment, the second course appeared. The temperature's wrong, Jenna whispered. He's serving the caramel sauce too cold. I watched the sauce congeal on expensive china, turning what should have been silk into rubber. A food critic at the next table pushed his plate away. Then it happened. Chef Granger's face tightened as he tasted the third course. He gestured for Marcus, their heated whispers carrying across the suddenly quiet room. This was it. My moment to stand up, play the recording, expose everything. The evidence was right there in my pocket. One move and I know what you're doing. Olivia stood behind my chair, her voice low and sharp. I saw your notebook in Marcus's office, the one with the deliberately wrong temperatures. My hand froze halfway to my pocket. Funny how you recognize my handwriting now? You set him up to fail. Her fingers dug into my shoulder. You knew he'd follow those notes exactly. Like he followed my original recipes? I turned to face her. The ones you helped him steal? Something flickered in her eyes. Not guilt, but fear. You don't understand. Marcus promised. Ladies and gentlemen, Chef Granger's voice cut through the tension. It seems we're experiencing some technical difficulties. If you'll bear with us. A crash from the kitchen. Marcus burst through the doors, face flushed. It's sabotage. She sabotaged everything. He pointed at me, wild-eyed. Check the security cameras. She was in the kitchen last night. The room erupted in whispers. Dad stood up, his expression thunderous. Mom pressed her hands to her mouth. Is this true? Chef Granger asked, approaching our table. I reached for the USB drive, but Olivia moved faster. Actually, Chef Granger, there's something you should see. She pulled out her phone, pulled up a video. My heart stopped. It was me in the kitchen last night, but not sabotaging anything. Just carefully measuring ingredients, following my own recipes perfectly. The dishes Marcus had failed to recreate. I installed cameras weeks ago, Olivia said quietly. To protect Marcus, I thought, but they caught everything, including him stealing Peyton's recipes in the first place. The room spun. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. My revenge, my moment, my choice, all unraveling because my sister had once again stepped into the spotlight. You knew? I managed to say. You knew and you let him. I knew he was using your recipes. Her voice cracked. I didn't know he was going to claim them as his own. When I realized, I couldn't. I'm sorry. Chef Granger watched the video, his expression darkening. Marcus backed away, looking for escape. Critics pulled out phones, documenting everything. And there I sat, my perfect revenge transformed into public spectacle, orchestrated by the very person who'd betrayed me in the first place. Because that's the thing about revenge. Sometimes it comes from unexpected directions. And sometimes, when it finally arrives, it tastes nothing like you imagined. I stood up, legs shaking. Chef Granger, if you'll excuse me. Miss Reynolds, he said, eyes still on the video. I believe you and I need to have a serious conversation about your culinary innovations. Behind him, Marcus bolted for the door. Olivia reached for my hand. I pulled away. Some victories feel an awful lot like defeat. Chef Granger's private office felt smaller than the dining room, but the stakes were infinitely larger. He sat behind his desk, my recipe notebook open before him, while Olivia and I occupied opposite corners of the room like prize fighters before a match. These techniques, he tapped the pages, are revolutionary. The molecular gastronomy applications alone. He looked up at me. Why didn't you ever apply here? I did. The words tasted bitter. 3 times. Your HR department never responded. Because Marcus intercepted the applications. Olivia cut in. He was afraid you'd... I don't need you to defend me. My voice could have frozen flame. Not after everything. Ladies, Granger interrupted. Let's focus on the immediate issue. Miss Reynolds, Peyton, I'd like to offer you a position. Head chef at our new location. The same position they'd promised Marcus. The irony wasn't lost on me. And what about Marcus? I asked. The police are handling that aspect. Granger's tone hardened. Intellectual property theft is a serious offense. Olivia flinched. He didn't act alone. No, I turned to face her fully. He didn't. I installed those cameras 2 weeks ago, she said quietly, after I found your original notebooks in his apartment, the ones he said he'd destroyed. How convenient. You get to play hero after months of helping him steal my work. I was wrong. Her composure cracked. I was jealous, okay? You were always the talented one, the creative one. I just wanted... She stopped, tears threatening. Wanted what? To watch me fail? To matter. The words exploded from her. To be more than your shadow for once. Granger cleared his throat. Perhaps I should give you 2 a moment. No. I planted my hands on his desk. You should hear this too, because here's what's going to happen. I'll take the position, but on my terms. Full creative control. My name on my dishes. and a public acknowledgement of where these recipes actually came from. Done, he said immediately. And Marcus? Press charges. He made his choices. I turned back to Olivia. Just like you made yours. She stepped forward. Peyton, please, I know I messed up, but I'm trying to make it right. By swooping in at the last minute? Stealing my revenge like Marcus stole my recipes? By telling the truth, finally. She grabbed her phone, pulled up more videos. Look, I recorded everything. Every time he practiced your recipes, every conversation about using them. I was gathering evidence, trying to find the courage to what? Admit you were wrong? That's not courage, Olivia. That's damage control. Then what do you want from me? The question hung in the air, heavy with years of competition and resentment. What did I want? Revenge had driven me this far, but now, staring at my sister's tear-stained face, I felt something shift. I want my sister back, I said finally. Not the one who sees me as competition. The one who used to sneak into my kitchen at midnight to taste test new recipes. The one who believed in me before anyone else did. Granger cleared his throat again. The press is waiting for a statement. About Marcus, the recipes, all of it. What should I tell them? I looked at Olivia. Really looked at her. Behind the perfect makeup and practiced poise, I saw something familiar. The same hunger for validation that had driven me all these years. Tell them. I picked up my notebook. Tell them that innovation runs in the family, and that sometimes the best recipes require multiple attempts before they turn out right. Olivia's eyes widened slightly. Understanding passed between us. Not forgiveness, not yet, but possibility. Like a complex dish, some relationships need time to develop their full flavor. And Marcus? She asked softly. Gets to learn what it's like to cook with his own ingredients for once. Because here's the thing about revenge. Sometimes the sweetest version isn't the one you planned, but the one that allows you to preserve what matters while letting go of what doesn't. I held out my hand to my sister. Want to help me design the new menu? Her smile was watery but real. Only if you promise to give me honest feedback this time. Deal. I turned to Granger. Now, about those terms, the envelope arrived on opening night, just as the first customers were being seated at Fusion. No return address, just my name in familiar handwriting. I slipped it into my chef's coat pocket, unopened. Tonight belonged to the food. My new kitchen hummed with controlled chaos. Olivia expedited orders with surprising authority, while Jenna managed the front of house with her usual precision. Through the service window, I glimpsed my parents at their table. Dad actually nervous for once, Mom clutching her napkin like a lifeline. First order, Olivia called out. Table 7, tasting menu with the chef's signature fusion series. My signature series. No borrowed glory, no stolen techniques, just pure creation. The rhythm of service took over. The sizzle of pans, the precise plating, the steady flow of dishes leaving my kitchen exactly as I'd envisioned them. Between courses, I caught glimpses of faces lighting up with discovery, of critics taking careful notes, of Chef Granger nodding approvingly from his corner table. Chef, one of my line cooks called out, Table 12 wants to meet you. Later, I said, focusing on the caramel sauce that had once betrayed Marcus's theft. The temperature had to be exact. It's your parents' table. I handed the sauce to my sous chef. Finish this, remember? 165 degrees exactly, I know, chef. At their table, Dad stood awkwardly, looking out of place without his usual certainty. Mom wiped her eyes with that napkin. The food, Dad started, then stopped. Peyton, I know. I adjusted my chef's coat. But you're here now. That dessert, Mom said softly. The one with the spiced caramel. It's the same one you made for my birthday when you were 16. With improvements. I smiled slightly. The original was a bit sweet. It was perfect, she whispered. Dad cleared his throat. We were wrong. About everything. About Marcus. About your dreams. About... Chef? Olivia's voice cut through the moment. Need you in the kitchen. Now. Back in my domain, I found organized pandemonium. A food critic had ordered every fusion dish on the menu. For comparison, he'd said. My hands moved automatically, perfecting each dish a statement of identity. The envelope crinkled in my pocket as I plated the final course. I pulled it out, finally ready. Marcus's letter was brief. I'm sorry, not just for stealing your recipes, but for making you doubt your talent. You were always the real chef. I was just a good copycat. The irony is, if I'd asked for help instead of stealing it, you probably would have taught me. That's the kind of person you are. The kind I pretended to be. Olivia appeared at my elbow. You okay? I handed her the letter. File it with the evidence? She read it quickly, then tore it in half. Or we could just move forward. Through the service window, I watched the critic take his first bite of my signature dish, the one Marcus had stolen, the one that had started everything. His eyes widened slightly. Chef, my sous chef called out. Next orders? I looked around my kitchen, at the team that trusted my vision, at the sister who'd chosen truth over comfort, at the future spreading out before me like a blank menu waiting to be filled. Next orders, I confirmed, reaching for my notebook. A new one, filled with recipes yet to be perfected. Let's show them what fusion really means. Because here's the thing about revenge. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, but building something they could never copy. Something uniquely, unquestionably yours. I heard the critic asking for another portion of the caramel sauce. Olivia caught my eye and grinned. Even Dad, watching from his table, looked proud. Not of some reflected glory, but of the chef I'd become despite everything. Or maybe because of everything. Fire table 9, I called out, and my kitchen responded like a well-tuned orchestra. This was my symphony, my creation, my truth. And it tasted better than revenge ever could.
The note sat on my kitchen counter like a coiled snake. Crisp white paper, perfectly folded, unsigned. I picked it up with trembling fingers, my black funeral dress still damp from the afternoon rain. The words were typed, clinical. David wasn't who you thought he was. Neither is Owen. My name is Riley, and I buried my husband today. Mom, Logan's voice echoed from the foyer. Need help with those flowers? Just leave them, I called back, shoving the note into my pocket. The last thing I needed was my youngest son seeing this, not when we were all barely holding it together. The house filled with the murmur of funeral guests, their hollow condolences and casseroles cluttering my space. I pressed my palms against the cool granite countertop, steadying myself. Mrs. Harrison? Chloe's sugar-sweet voice made my shoulders tense. Owen and I were thinking, since everyone's already here, maybe we could discuss the wedding plans? I turned to face my future daughter-in-law, her perfectly manicured hand resting possessively on Owen's arm. My oldest son wouldn't meet my eyes. My husband isn't even cold in his grave, Chloe. Mother? Owen cut in, his voice sharp. Chloe's just trying to be practical. The venue we want needs 6 months' notice, and with Dad's inheritance... Don't. The word came out like a whip crack. Not today. Logan appeared in the doorway, his tie loosened, looking so much like his father it made my chest ache. Everything okay in here? Just perfect, Chloe smiled, but her eyes remained cold. Owen, honey, let's go mingle. Your father's colleagues from the hospital are asking for you. I watched them leave, the note burning in my pocket. David had been the perfect husband, the respected surgeon, our family's foundation. But that paper whispered of cracks I'd refused to see. They're vultures, Logan muttered, reaching past me for a water glass. You know Owen's been meeting with Dad's investment manager? Before the funeral? My hand instinctively touched my pocket. Has he? Something about expediting the transfer process. Logan's jaw tightened. Chloe's been pushing him. That wedding venue she wants? It's $90,000. The room swayed slightly. David and I had built our life carefully, saving every penny from our medical careers. The thought of our legacy being squandered on Chloe's champagne dreams made bile rise in my throat. "Mom?" Logan touched my arm. "You're white as a sheet." "I'm fine." I wasn't. The note's words kept repeating in my head. David wasn't who you thought he was. Neither is Owen. A burst of laughter from the living room made us both turn. Chloe stood in the center of a group, her black dress more suitable for a cocktail party than a funeral, gesturing animatedly. Owen hovered nearby, that familiar anxious look on his face that appeared whenever she was performing. "I should go check on the guests," I said, but Logan caught my wrist. "Wait," he lowered his voice. "There's something else. I found some paperwork in Dad's study last night, investment statements that don't make sense. Owen's name is all over them." The note wasn't lying. My hands started to shake again, but this time not from grief. "Thank you, Logan. I need to make some calls tomorrow." "Mom?" His concerned expression mirrored his father's, but I couldn't bear it right now. "Everything will be fine," I lied, patting his cheek. "Go help your brother entertain." Alone in the kitchen, I pulled out the note again. The typed letters blurred as fury replaced my numbness. David might be gone, but I was still here. And if Owen thought he could dismantle everything we'd built, he was about to learn something about his mother he never suspected. I crumpled the paper and let it fall into the trash. Somewhere in the house, Chloe laughed again, the sound like breaking glass. Let them think I was just the grieving widow. They'd learn soon enough. 3 days after the funeral, I found myself staring at David's investment portfolio spread across our dining room table. The numbers swam before my eyes, each page revealing another layer of confusion. 20 years of marriage, and I'd never questioned his financial decisions. Now every statement felt like an accusation. The doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. Through the window, I spotted Owen's Tesla parked in the driveway, Chloe perched in the passenger seat examining her reflection. "Mother?" Owen's voice carried that forced cheerfulness he'd developed lately. "We brought lunch." I gathered the papers quickly, tucking them into a folder. "Come in." Chloe swept past me, designer shopping bags dangling from her arm. "I hope you don't mind, but I've been looking at wedding venues. The Rosewood Manor is absolutely perfect." The Rosewood? I remember David and I discussing it years ago for Owen's college graduation. Even then, it had been outrageously expensive. "Isn't that a bit extravagant?" Owen finished, setting down takeout containers. "We think it's worth it. Actually, that's partly why we're here. We need to discuss the inheritance timeline." My chest tightened. "It's been 3 days, Owen." "Business doesn't wait, Mother." He pulled out his phone, all efficiency. "The executor mentioned something about joint accounts needing to be—" "Stop." I pressed my palms flat against the table. "Your father's accounts aren't going anywhere." Chloe's perfectly plucked eyebrows drew together. "But the venue requires a 50% deposit by next week to hold our date. Owen mentioned there were some investments that could be liquidated. Those investments were your father's life's work." I cut in, watching Owen's face. Strange how some of the recent statements show unauthorized withdrawals. The room went still. Owen's phone slipped slightly in his grip. "I don't know what you're implying," he said carefully, but a muscle jumped in his jaw. David's tell when he was lying. "Don't you?" I pulled out one statement. "This transfer to Owen Harrison Enterprises, dated 2 months ago. Did your father approve that while he was in intensive care?" Chloe's hand found Owen's arm, squeezing. "Honey, maybe we should—" "Dad gave me permission to manage certain accounts." Owen interrupted. "He trusted my business acumen, unlike some people." The barb stung, but I held his gaze. "Then you won't mind if I have our lawyer review everything?" "Mother." His voice dropped dangerously. "Don't do this." "Do what? Protect what your father built?" "Protect?" He laughed harshly. You mean control. You've always resented my success, my ability to take risks, while you and Dad played it safe. Safe? The word tasted bitter. Your father worked 80-hour weeks saving lives while you gambled with his money. Owen, Chloe's voice held a warning. We should go. He ignored her, leaning across the table. I built something real. Dad saw that. He believed in me. Did he know about the foreclosure notices, the failed ventures, the investors threatening legal action? Owen's face went white. Behind him, Chloe's expression shifted from concern to calculation. Mrs. Harrison, she said smoothly, perhaps we all need time to grieve before making any hasty decisions about finances. Perhaps you need to stop planning million-dollar weddings with money that isn't yours. The doorbell rang again. Logan entered without waiting, stopping short at the tableau before him. Everything okay? He asked, eyes moving between us. Perfect timing, Owen snapped. Come to spy on me some more, little brother? What's that supposed to mean? I saw you going through Dad's study, running to Mommy with tales about Big Bad Owen. Someone had to, Logan shot back, while you were busy bleeding Dad's accounts dry. Enough! I slammed my hand down. Both sons fell silent, looking startlingly young for a moment. We're leaving, Chloe announced, tugging Owen's sleeve. Call us when you're ready to be reasonable about the wedding plans. I watched them go, Logan hovering uncertainly in the doorway. The takeout container sat unopened, another family meal ruined. Mom? Logan's voice was gentle. What do you need? I looked at the scattered papers, each one a piece of evidence in a betrayal I was only beginning to understand. I need you to tell me everything you found in your father's study, every detail. The front door slammed as Owen's Tesla roared to life. Through the window, I watched them speed away, my son and his fiancée, their perfect facade already showing cracks. They had no idea what was coming. The manila envelope arrived on a Tuesday, hand-delivered by David's former colleague at Memorial Hospital. Dr. Chen's face was grim as he passed it to me. I found these while clearing out David's office, he said quietly. You should see them. Inside were transaction records spanning the last 2 years of David's life. Each page revealed another betrayal, systematic transfers from the hospital's research foundation to Owen's various ventures. My son's signature appeared alongside my husband's, a twisted dance of numbers that made me sink into my chair. There's more, Dr. Chen said. The foundation board is meeting next week. They're planning an audit. The word audit hung in the air like smoke. I thought of Owen's Tesla, Chloe's designer wardrobe, the Rosewood Manor deposit they were so desperate to secure. How much? My voice sounded distant. Nearly $2 million. My hands began to shake. Did David know? I don't think so. The signatures? He hesitated. Some appear inconsistent with his later ones when he was in treatment. The implication turned my blood to ice. I remembered Owen visiting his father in the hospital, always with papers to sign, always when David was heavily medicated. My phone buzzed, a text from Chloe. Bridal shower planning lunch tomorrow? Already invited 50 of my closest friends. I set the phone face down as Dr. Chen continued. The board wants to keep this quiet, but if criminal charges are filed, I understand. I stood, suddenly needing to move. Thank you for bringing this to me first. After he left, I drove to Logan's design studio across town. He was working late, as usual, his computer screen reflecting off his glasses. Mom? He looked up, concerned. What's wrong? I placed the envelope on his desk. Read these. Tell me I'm not seeing what I think I'm seeing. He scanned the documents, his expression darkening. Jesus Christ, Owen. Your father's reputation, my voice cracked. Everything he built. We have to go to the police and destroy what's left of this family. Mom, Logan's voice was gentle but firm. Owen's already destroyed it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Owen. Meeting with wedding planner tomorrow. Need you to sign some papers for the venue deposit. Time sensitive. A bitter laugh escaped me. Time sensitive, like the foundation audit, like the foreclosure notices, like David's forged signatures. There's something else, Logan said, pulling up his email. Remember how I was looking into Chloe's background? She's been engaged 3 times before Owen. Each time there were financial irregularities with her fiancé's accounts. 2 restraining orders filed after breakups. The pieces clicked together with terrible clarity. I thought of Chloe's perfectly calculated smiles, her insistence on accessing David's accounts, her rush to secure the wedding venue. My phone rang. Chloe herself. Mrs. Harrison? Her voice dripped honey. About tomorrow's lunch. I've reserved the private room at La Maison. Just need you to call ahead and put down your credit card for the deposit. $20,000 should cover it. I watched Logan's face as he continued reading the documents. My son who stayed honest despite everything, who warned me while I refused to see. Actually, Chloe, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, I think we need to have a different kind of conversation. You, me, and Owen. About the hospital foundation. The line went silent for 3 heartbeats. I don't know what you're talking about. Her voice had lost its sweetness. Owen handles all the business matters. Yes, he certainly does. The board meeting next week should be interesting. She hung up. Within minutes, Owen was calling. I let it go to voicemail. Mom? Logan touched my arm. What are you going to do? I looked at the evidence spread across his desk, the proof of my son's betrayal, my husband's legacy in ruins, our family's reputation hanging by a thread. The grief I'd been carrying since David's death crystallized into something harder, colder. First, I said, gathering the papers, I'm going to that lunch tomorrow. Then I'm going to show them exactly who they're dealing with. Logan's eyes widened slightly. He'd never heard that tone in my voice before. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Chloe to Owen, accidentally sent to our family group chat. She knows. We need to move faster. I smiled, thinking of the unsigned note that started all this. They thought I was just the grieving widow, too broken to fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. La Maison's private dining room felt like a trap. Chloe had arranged the seating perfectly, herself at the head of the table, her bridesmaids flanking her like a royal court, and me isolated at the far end. I counted 23 designer handbags worth more than my car. Mrs. Harrison, Chloe clinked her champagne glass. We simply must discuss the rehearsal dinner, the Rosewood's executive chef. My phone vibrated, a text from Dr. Chen. Board meeting moved up. Tomorrow morning, they know. Actually, I set down my untouched mimosa. We need to discuss something else. The foundation documents sat in my bag like a loaded gun. I'd spent the night memorizing every fraudulent transfer, every forged signature. But before I could speak, the dining room door opened. Owen walked in. Sorry to interrupt, ladies, he smiled apologetically, but his eyes were hard when they met mine. Mother, could I have a word? Chloe's bridesmaids tittered. I noticed how their phones all seemed to appear simultaneously, recording the moment. Now isn't a good time, I said. It's about Dad's estate. Owen's voice carried just enough for everyone to hear. Some concerning irregularities we should address privately. My hand tightened on my bag. So that's how they wanted to play it. Paint me as the unstable widow, mismanaging funds, causing scenes at bridal showers. Irregularities? I stood slowly. Like the $2 million missing from the hospital foundation? The room went silent. Phones lowered. Chloe's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Mother, Owen's voice dropped dangerously. You're upset, grieving. Let's not do this here. Why not? Isn't this what you wanted? An audience? I pulled out the documents. Though perhaps not these particular witnesses. Chloe stood abruptly. Ladies, maybe we should sit down. My voice could have frozen hell. Everyone stays. My phone buzzed again. Logan. Police just left my office. Owen's been emptying accounts all morning. The pieces clicked together. The rushed bridal shower, the audience of smartphones, Owen's surprise appearance. They were building their narrative before the foundation board could build theirs. Your father spent 30 years building his reputation at that hospital. I said, each word precise and cutting. 30 years saving lives while you forged his signature from his deathbed. That's a lie, Owen snarled, but his face had gone pale. Is it? Should we call the foundation board? They're meeting tomorrow, earlier than you expected, I imagine. Chloe's mask finally cracked. Owen, we need to go, now. Running again, Chloe? Like you did from your last 3 fiancés? Logan found those restraining orders, by the way. Fascinating reading. The bridesmaids' phones were recording again, but for very different reasons now. Owen grabbed my arm. You're making a mistake. I looked at his hand, then into his eyes. David's eyes, but colder, harder. No, the mistake was thinking you were still the son I raised. Let go of me. Mrs. Harrison. Chloe's voice had turned syrupy again. Please, we're family. Whatever you think you know. My phone rang. The hospital's chief of surgery's name flashed on the screen. Owen saw it too. It's over, I said quietly. The board knows everything. The police know everything. Your little performance here won't save you. Owen's grip tightened painfully. You have no idea what you've done. Security, Chloe called out, her voice shrill. This woman is disturbed. She's threatening us. But the restaurant security guard took one look at Owen's grip on my arm and made his own assessment. Sir, you need to step back. I watched my son's face transform as he realized how badly their plan had backfired. All these witnesses, all those phones recording, and none of it going the way they'd intended. You'll regret this, he hissed, releasing my arm. I thought of David, of all his years of honest work destroyed by his own son's greed, of the unsigned note that had started everything, of the choice I faced now, protect my son from consequences or protect what was right. No, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I won't. Owen and Chloe fled the restaurant, leaving chaos in their wake. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Logan, Dr. Chen, the police, the hospital board. But for a moment, I just stood there, surrounded by strangers with phones, feeling something shift inside me. The time for grief was over. Now it was time for justice. The hospital boardroom felt like a tomb. 14 pairs of eyes watched me place David's research files on the polished table. Dr. Chen sat to my right, his presence both comfort and catalyst. Mrs. Harrison, the board chairman began, these allegations against your son are documented here. I slid the files forward. Along with evidence of 3 other companies Owen created specifically to funnel foundation money, the door opened. Marcus Weber, David's oldest friend and the foundation's legal counsel, entered with a stack of papers that made my stomach clench. It's worse than we thought, he said quietly. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit just contacted us. Owen's not just targeting the foundation. There are at least 7 other victims. My hands started to shake. I tucked them under the table, remembering Owen as a child, his father's pride when he graduated business school. Now federal agents were using words like victims. My phone vibrated, a text from Logan. Chloe's at the house, says she needs to talk, alone. Mrs. Harrison, the chairman's voice pulled me back. Given your position as both David's widow and Owen's mother, we need to know where you stand. Where I stood, as if 25 years of marriage and 32 years of motherhood could be reduced to taking sides. I stand with the truth, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Whatever that costs. Marcus passed me a document. The FBI wants to interview you tomorrow. They found a pattern linking Chloe to similar schemes in 3 other states. The room tilted slightly. 3 other states. 3 other fiancés. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. "Excuse me," I stood abruptly. "There's something I need to handle." I drove home with my heart hammering. Chloe's red Mercedes sat in my driveway, but Owen's Tesla was nowhere in sight. Logan waited on the porch, his expression dark. "She's in the living room," he said. "I don't trust her mom." "Good." I touched his arm. "Stay close, but let me handle this." Chloe sat on David's favorite chair, wearing widow's black like she was auditioning for a role. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but I'd learned not to trust her tears. "Mrs. Harrison," she began, "I had no idea what Owen was doing. You have to believe." "Stop." I remained standing, using height to my advantage. "The FBI knows about Pittsburgh and Seattle and Houston." She flinched just slightly. A tell. "Those situations were different," she whispered. "I was young, desperate, and now?" "Owen's unstable, dangerous." Her voice cracked perfectly. "He's threatening to expose things about me unless I help him move more money." I thought, maybe we could help each other. The proposal hung in the air like poison. An alliance with Chloe against Owen, mother and fiancé, united in betrayal. My phone buzzed again. "Dr. Chen?" "Owen just showed up at the hospital, making scenes, threatening staff. Police en route." "What exactly are you offering, Chloe?" She leaned forward, hope flickering in her eyes. "Information, accounts, evidence that Owen acted alone. I could help you protect David's legacy." For a moment, I saw it, the easier path. Let Chloe turn on Owen. Let her take the fall with him. Protect what was left of my family's reputation. Then I remembered the unsigned note that started everything. The way Owen gripped my arm at La Maison. David's forged signatures on his deathbed. "You really are perfect for each other," I said quietly. "What?" "You and Owen, both so convinced you're the smartest person in the room." I pulled out my phone, stopped the recording. "The FBI will be interested in that confession about helping move money." Her face transformed. The vulnerable mask vanished, replaced by something cold and hard. "You stupid bitch! You have no idea what Owen will do when he finds out." Logan appeared in the doorway. "He'll what? What will my brother do?" Chloe stood, gathering her designer bag. "You're making a mistake, both of you." "No," I said, thinking of David, of justice, of the choice between easy lies and hard truths. "For the first time, I'm not." She fled, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and desperate schemes. My phone buzzed one final time, the FBI agent's number. The time for half measures was over. Tomorrow I would tell them everything. Logan touched my shoulder. "Mom, you okay?" I wasn't. I wouldn't be for a long time. But I was finally ready to finish what that unsigned note had started. "Call Marcus," I said. "Tell him we're ready to move forward. All of it." The war was about to begin. The Rosewood Manor glittered like a false promise. I watched the city's elite file in. Hospital board members, business associates, Owen's investors, all drawn by the promise of a reconciliation dinner. My son's last chance to explain himself before tomorrow's FBI interview. Logan adjusted my pearl necklace, David's last Christmas gift. "You don't have to do this, Mom." "Yes, I do." I touched the USB drive in my clutch, containing every damning document, every forged signature, every stolen dollar. They need to see who Owen really is. The grand ballroom hummed with nervous energy. Owen and Chloe held court near the champagne fountain, her laugh carrying across the room like breaking glass. My son wore his father's confident smile, but his eyes darted around like a cornered animal. "Mrs. Harrison." Marcus Weber appeared at my elbow. "The FBI agent called. They've frozen Owen's accounts. But there's a problem. $2 million disappeared this morning." My chest tightened. "How?" "Offshore transfer. They think Chloe..." A champagne glass clinked. Owen stood at the center of the room, Chloe radiant beside him. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "Especially you, Mother. Your support means everything during this difficult time." The crowd murmured sympathetically. I felt their eyes on me, the grieving widow, the concerned mother, trying to save her troubled son. If only they knew. "In fact," Owen continued, "I have an announcement. Thanks to my mother's generous investment in my latest venture." "What investment?" The words escaped before I could stop them. Owen's smile didn't waver. "The transfer you approved this morning. From Dad's research foundation?" The room went silent. I felt the trap closing. "I never approved any transfer." "But we have the paperwork." Chloe's voice dripped concern. "Your signature, witnessed and notarized. Owen was so touched by your faith in him." My hands began to shake. "That's impossible." "Actually," Owen pulled out his phone, "I have it right here, along with some interesting emails suggesting you've been embezzling from the foundation for years. Dad suspected, but he wanted to protect you." The blood drained from my face. They'd planned this perfectly. The public venue, the witnesses, the false documentation. While I'd been gathering evidence against them, they'd been building their own case against me. "Show them," I challenged, my voice steadier than I felt. "Show them everything." "Mrs. Harrison," Dr. Chen stepped forward, "perhaps we should discuss this privately." "No." Owen's voice hardened. "Mother's right, everything in the open." He pressed a button on his phone. The ballroom screens lit up with financial documents. My signature, perfectly forged, on dozens of transfers, emails I'd never written detailing elaborate schemes. "I protected you," Owen continued, his voice carrying. "Covered for you when Dad got suspicious. But after his death, your behavior became erratic. The spending, the accusations, the threats." Chloe touched his arm, the perfect supportive fiancé. "We're worried about you, the grief, the stress. You really think anyone will believe this?" I reached for my clutch, for the USB drive containing the truth. It wasn't there. "Looking for this?" Chloe held up my drive. "You left your bag unattended during cocktails, careless." The room spun slightly. Every plan, every piece of evidence, gone. And in its place, a carefully constructed narrative of my own guilt. "Logan," I turned to my youngest son, "tell them," but Logan stood frozen, staring at the screens, at the evidence of his mother's apparent crimes. The doubt in his eyes cut deeper than any knife. "We've arranged for a private facility," Owen announced to the crowd. "The best psychiatric care. Mother needs help, not punishment." Two men in dark suits appeared beside me. Security, but not the hotels. "Mrs. Harrison," one said quietly, "please come with us." "No," I backed away. I didn't. But I saw it in their faces. The party guests, the board members, even Logan. They believed Owen's performance, the unstable widow, stealing from her husband's legacy, now having a public breakdown. "It's okay, Mother." Owen stepped forward, every inch the concerned son. "We're going to take care of everything." I looked into his eyes, David's eyes, and saw nothing of the boy I'd raised. Just a stranger wearing my son's face, about to destroy everything I had left. The security guards moved closer. In the crowd, Chloe smiled her perfect smile. They had won. For now. The private facility's security was lighter than expected. 3 days of playing the sedated patient had convinced them I was no threat. When the night nurse left my door unlocked, I knew it wasn't a mistake. Logan was waiting in the parking lot, engine running. "Did anyone see you?" he asked as I slid into the passenger seat. "No," I checked my watch, 9:47 p.m. "The foundation board meeting starts in 13 minutes. "Owen and Chloe are already there." Logan pulled onto the highway. "They're presenting their evidence against you." I touched the flash drive hanging from my neck, the real one, not the decoy Chloe had stolen. "Let them." The hospital's administrative building loomed ahead, its top-floor conference room glowing like a beacon. Logan parked in the shadows. "Mom," he grabbed my arm. "Are you sure about this?" I thought of David, of all his years of honest work, of Owen's betrayal, of Chloe's smirk as security led me away. "They took everything," I said. "Now I'm taking it back." The service elevator required David's old key card. It still worked. Some things they'd forgotten to cancel in their rush to discredit me. We emerged into a darkened hallway just as Owen's voice carried through the boardroom's closed doors. "Clearly shows a pattern of embezzlement dating back years. My father suspected." I pushed open the doors. 20 heads turned. "Did he?" My voice cut through the silence. "Tell us more about what your father suspected, Owen." Owen froze mid-gesture. Chloe's perfect smile slipped. "Security," she called out, but no one moved. "The security team is rather busy," Logan said from behind me. Something about FBI agents in the lobby. I walked to the conference table, my heels clicking on marble. "Dr. Chen, would you mind pulling up the boardroom's main screen?" Owen lunged for his laptop, but Marcus Weber was faster, sliding it away. "You're supposed to be under observation," Owen snarled. "This is proof of your instability. These are proof of yours." I plugged in the drive. The screen flickered to life. The room gasped collectively. There was Owen, caught on David's home office camera, forcing his father's hand to sign documents. David's voice, weak from morphine. "Son, please, don't." "Where did you get that?" Chloe's voice shook. David may have been dying, but he wasn't stupid. I advanced to the next file. He installed cameras after the first suspicious transfer, recorded everything. Security footage played, Owen and Chloe in the hospital corridor, planning, scheming. Bank statements showing the real transfers. Photos of Chloe with her previous victims. "You took advantage of a dying man?" I continued, my voice steady. "Your own father. And when that wasn't enough, you tried to destroy me." "You don't understand." Owen's composure cracked. "Chloe needed—" "Shut up." Chloe's mask finally shattered. "You weak, pathetic—" "Mrs. Harrison," Dr. Chen stood. "The FBI agents you mentioned are here for them." I nodded toward the doors where federal agents now stood, although they're particularly interested in Chloe's activities across state lines. Chloe bolted, shoving past Logan. She made it 3 steps before an agent caught her arm. "Mom!" Owen's voice changed, became the little boy who once needed me. "Please, I can explain." "You can explain to them." I met his eyes, David's eyes, one last time. "Your father recorded one last message before he died. Would you like to hear what he really suspected?" The color drained from his face. As the agents led them away, the board members sat in stunned silence. Logan touched my shoulder, offering silent support. "Mrs. Harrison," Marcus finally spoke, "the Foundation's reputation. How do you want to handle this?" I looked at the screen, still showing David's final days, my husband's legacy, nearly destroyed by our own son's greed. "We tell the truth," I said, "all of it. Then we rebuild." "And Owen?" I thought of the unsigned note that started everything, of justice and revenge and the thin line between them. He made his choice. I unplugged the drive, David's last gift to protect what he'd built. Now he faces the consequences. Logan and I left them there, descended to the lobby where reporters were already gathering. Through the glass doors, I saw Owen and Chloe being led to separate cars, their perfect facade finally shattered. "Mom?" Logan's voice was quiet. "Are you okay?" I wasn't. I wouldn't be for a long time. But as I watched the federal agents drive away with my oldest son, I felt something shift inside me. The end of one chapter, the beginning of another. "Let's go home," I said, thinking of David, of justice served, of peace finally within reach. "It's over." The unsigned note sat on my desk, edges worn from constant handling. I'd found it while clearing David's study, tucked inside an old medical journal, written in my own handwriting, a message I'd left myself and forgotten, born from late nights watching Owen pressure his dying father for signatures. "You already knew," I whispered to David's empty chair. "You were trying to tell me." A knock at the door. Logan entered with a stack of newspapers. The headlines screamed of Owen's sentencing, of Chloe's plea deal, of the Foundation's restored reputation. "Dr. Chin called," he said. "The board approved your proposal for the new pediatric wing. Dad's name will be on it." I traced David's name on the medical journal. "And the other thing? Found it this morning." Logan placed a small recorder on my desk. "Dad's last message, the one you mentioned at the confrontation, it doesn't exist, does it?" "No," I met his eyes. "But Owen didn't know that." A ghost of a smile crossed Logan's face, so much like his father's. "You played him, like he played us. I learned from the best." I gestured to the papers. "Chloe taught me how to wear a mask. Owen showed me how to exploit weakness. And your father," I touched the note, "he taught me to trust my instincts." The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Marcus Weber's car in the driveway. "The Foundation's lawyers," Logan said. "Ready?" I stood, smoothing my jacket. The old Riley would have hesitated, sought approval, tried to protect everyone's feelings, but she died with David, reborn in the ashes of betrayal. Marcus waited in the living room with settlement papers, Owen's restitution agreement, Chloe's confession, the Foundation's official statement clearing my name. "There's one more thing," Marcus said, pulling out a letter. "From Owen, he's requesting visitation." The room went still. Logan's hand found my shoulder. "He claims he's changed," Marcus continued. "That prison has given him perspective." I thought of Owen's face that night at the Foundation, of David's eyes looking back at me, pleading for mercy, of the son I'd lost long before I realized he was gone. "No," the word came easily now. "Some bridges stay burned." Marcus nodded, understanding. As he gathered his papers, I noticed a small card had fallen from Owen's letter. A wedding announcement, Chloe's engagement to her prison psychiatrist. I laughed, surprising myself. Some people never change. "But some do," Logan said quietly. After Marcus left, I returned to David's study. The afternoon sun caught his medical degrees, his family photos, the legacy he'd built. In the corner, a small box waited. Donations for the pediatric wing's groundbreaking ceremony. "I found something else," Logan said from the doorway. He held up a familiar envelope. "The original copy of that note. It wasn't you who wrote it." My hands trembled as I took it. The handwriting, precise, medical, achingly familiar. "Dad knew," Logan continued. "He wrote it before he died, but couldn't bring himself to tell you directly about Owen. So he left breadcrumbs, hoping you'd find your way to the truth." The note blurred as tears threatened. David's final gift, not just evidence of Owen's betrayal, but permission to fight back, to choose justice over mercy. "What now?" Logan asked. I placed both notes, David's original and my unconscious copy, in his old medical journal. Two versions of the same warning, a father's love echoing through time. "Now we rebuild," I said, thinking of the pediatric wing, of Logan's quiet strength, of the peace I'd finally found. But differently this time. No more masks, no more perfect facades. And Owen? I looked at David's photo, at the son who'd destroyed everything and the son who'd helped rebuild it, at the woman I'd become, not just a grieving widow or an avenging mother, but something harder, stronger, more complex. "He made his choice," I said. "I've made mine." Logan nodded, understanding the weight of endings and beginnings. Outside, the sun set on the remnants of our old life, casting long shadows that looked almost like justice. Some would call it revenge, others karma. But as I closed David's journal for the last time, I knew it was simply truth, raw, painful, and finally free.
The numbers blurred together on the bank statement as my hands trembled. $5,000 missing. Not a mistake, not a glitch, methodically siphoned away in small increments over 3 months. I recognized Sophie's handwriting on the forged checks, each one a perfect imitation of her mother's signature. My name is Vivian, and until this moment, I thought I was doing everything right. Supporting my husband Chris through his new job overseas, taking care of his parents, playing nice with his scheming stepsister. But now, staring at the proof of betrayal spread across my dining room table, I realized how naive I'd been. Everything okay in here? Sophie's voice drifted from the doorway, honey-sweet and dripping with false concern. Mom was wondering if you'd finished with the monthly reconciliation. I kept my eyes on the papers, carefully controlling my expression. Just wrapping up. Tell Evelyn I'll bring everything to her in a few minutes. You know how she worries about the finances since Dad's retirement. Sophie moved closer, peering over my shoulder. Anything I can help with? No. I shuffled the incriminating statements into a folder. I've got it handled. She lingered, perfectly manicured nails drumming against the table's surface. It must be such a burden managing everything while Chris is away. If you're feeling overwhelmed, I said I've got it handled. The edge in my voice made her step back, but I caught the flash of calculation in her eyes before she masked it with a sympathetic smile. Of course, just trying to help. She retreated toward the door. Oh, and don't forget, Tom and I are hosting dinner tomorrow night. The whole family's coming. Even that sweet neighbor of yours, Karen. It would mean so much to Mom if you could make it. The invitation hung in the air like a challenge. I nodded once, already plotting how to use the gathering to my advantage. Wouldn't miss it. After she left, I pulled out my phone and snapped photos of every fraudulent check, every suspicious transaction. My fingers moved quickly, methodically, like they used to when I'd helped my parents with their small business accounting before the accident. They'd taught me to trust numbers. Numbers don't lie, they'd say. Numbers tell stories that people try to hide. The front door opened and closed downstairs. Evelyn's voice carried up, warm and confused. Sophie, I thought you were helping Vivian with the accounts. Oh, she said she had everything under control. Sophie's response was perfectly pitched, concerned, slightly worried. Actually, Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you about something. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles white. 3 years I'd spent trying to be the perfect daughter-in-law, supporting Chris's dreams, caring for his family, ignoring Sophie's subtle digs and manipulations. But this, stealing from her own mother, probably planning to blame it on me when the truth came out, this was different. My phone buzzed with a text from Chris. Missing you, how's everyone doing? I stared at his message, thinking about how much he adored his stepsister, how he always defended her when I tried to point out her games. He'd never believed she could do something like this without proof, and even with proof, it would break his heart. Below, Sophie's laughter floated up the stairs, followed by Evelyn's softer chuckle. The sound made my jaw clench. I thought about the dinner tomorrow night, about all the careful masks we'd wear, the polite conversations hiding ugly truths. Fine. If Sophie wanted to play games, I could play too. But I'd learned from my parents that the best revenge, like the best accounting, requires patience, precision, and attention to detail. I opened my laptop and began to dig deeper into the family's finances, knowing that somewhere in these numbers lay the key to Sophie's downfall. Let her think she's won. Let her believe I'm just the naive sister-in-law, too trusting and overwhelmed to notice her schemes. Tomorrow's dinner would be just the beginning. After all, revenge, like family, is best served at home. The family dinner felt like a carefully choreographed dance, with Sophie playing the perfect hostess. I watched her refill Evelyn's wine glass for the 3rd time, noting how she'd barely touched her own. Vivian, you've been so quiet tonight, Sophie said, sliding back into her seat. Is everything all right with the accounts? Mom mentioned you seemed stressed yesterday. Across the table, Tom's eyes flickered between us. He'd been watching me all evening with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I forced a smile. Everything's fine. Just double-checking some numbers. Oh, you don't need to worry about that anymore. Sophie announced, reaching for Evelyn's hand. Tom's offered to help with the finances. He has experience in wealth management. The fork stopped halfway to my mouth. That won't be necessary. Chris trusted me with... But darling, Evelyn cut in, her words slightly slurred. You're already doing so much, and Sophie says you've been overwhelmed lately. Mason cleared his throat from the end of the table. Vivian's doing an excellent job. I don't see any reason to... Actually, Tom interrupted, I've been reviewing some of the recent statements. There are several concerning patterns that need addressing. My chest tightened. Karen, sitting beside me, placed a gentle hand on my arm. She'd witnessed enough of Sophie's manipulations over the past year to recognize what was happening. What kind of patterns? I kept my voice steady, even as rage burned through my veins. Sophie dabbed her lips with a napkin. Tom noticed some irregular transfers. Small amounts, but they add up. We're just worried about Mom and Dad's retirement fund. The accusation hung in the air, unspoken but clear. I pushed back my chair, the screech against hardwood making everyone flinch. Show me. Tom produced a folder, too quickly, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. The documents inside were highlighted and annotated, painting a deliberate picture of mismanagement. My hand shook as I recognized the same transactions I'd discovered yesterday, but twisted to implicate me instead of Sophie. This is ridiculous, Karen spoke up. Vivian's been managing my accounts for months. She's meticulous. With all due respect, Sophie's voice dripped concern. Family finances are different. The emotional attachment can cloud judgment. I looked at Mason, seeing the doubt creep into his eyes. At Evelyn, already half convinced by her daughter's performance. The room spun slightly as pieces clicked into place. Sophie's dinner invitation, Tom's involvement, the careful orchestration of this moment. I need some air. I stood up, my chair toppling backward. Karen rose to follow, but I waved her off. In the kitchen, I gripped the counter, breathing deep. Through the window, I could see my reflection fractured by raindrops. Appropriate, given how thoroughly Sophie had just shattered my position in the family. Quite a performance in there. Tom's voice made me spin around. He stood in the doorway, holding 2 glasses of wine. Sophie said you'd be difficult about this. Did she also tell you about the forged checks? His smile never wavered. Careful, Vivian. Accusations like that could tear this family apart. Is that what you want? What I want is... Everything okay? Sophie appeared behind Tom, her hand sliding possessively around his waist. Mom's asking for you, Tom. She has questions about the investment strategies you mentioned. I watched them return to the dining room, my mind racing. They'd orchestrated this perfectly, using my own discovery against me, positioning themselves as concerned protectors while painting me as the threat. But they'd made one crucial mistake. My phone buzzed, a text from Chris. Video call tomorrow, miss you. I typed back quickly. Can't wait, so much to tell you. Through the doorway, I could hear Sophie consoling Evelyn, promising to help sort out the financial mess. Mason's deep voice rumbled with questions about Tom's credentials. Karen's defensive protests were being politely but firmly dismissed. Fine. If Sophie wanted to play this game, she'd learn what happens when you corner someone with nothing left to lose. I had the original documents, the transaction records, and most importantly, I had time. Chris wouldn't be home for another month, plenty of time to unravel Sophie's perfect plan, thread by thread. I straightened my spine and walked back into the dining room, where Sophie was now showing everyone a spreadsheet on her laptop. She looked up, triumph gleaming in her eyes. Feel better? She asked sweetly. I smiled back, matching her tone. Much better. In fact, I think things are finally becoming clear. Karen's kitchen always smelled like cinnamon, but today even that couldn't calm my nerves as I spread the documents across her counter. Look at these signatures, I said, pointing to 3 different checks. The strokes are identical, not similar. Identical. She leaned closer, frowning. Machine printed, hand forged, Sophie's work, but that's not even the worst part. I pulled up the bank records on my laptop. There's a pattern. Every time Evelyn gets her medication adjusted, there's a series of withdrawals, small enough to fly under the radar, but unless you're looking for them. Karen's face hardened. Have you told Mason? The front door slammed, making us both jump. Derek, my brother, stormed into the kitchen, his normally easygoing expression twisted with anger. Want to explain why Sophie just called me? My stomach dropped. What? She's worried about you, Viv. Says you've been making accusations, acting paranoid. Says you're under too much stress and might need help. He ran a hand through his hair. She mentioned Dad's accident, how trauma can resurface. She what? The room tilted slightly. She's using our parents' death to... To what? Derek demanded. Because from where I'm standing, you're obsessing over bank statements and forged signatures while your marriage falls apart. Chris called me too, by the way. Says you've been distant, secretive. Karen stepped between us. Derek, sit down. There's something you need to see. But before she could show him the evidence, my phone buzzed. A text from Mason. Emergency at house. Come now. The drive to the Turners took 12 minutes. I counted every second, my hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Derek followed in his car, still radiating skepticism and concern. We found Mason in the study, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Sophie stood beside him, one hand on his shoulder, her eyes red from crying. Tom lurked by the window, arms crossed. Show her, Mason said quietly. Sophie pulled out a familiar folder, the one I'd been keeping my evidence in, my original folder. These were in your desk drawer, she said softly. Along with these. She placed a bottle of pills beside it. Evelyn's medication. That's not possible. My voice sounded strange, distant. Those were in my home office. How did you... I found them when I was dropping off those investment documents. Tom cut in. Naturally, I felt obligated to bring them to Mason's attention. Derek stepped forward. What medication? Evelyn's anti-anxiety pills, Sophie explained, her voice trembling perfectly. The ones that keep going missing. The ones that coincide with all those suspicious withdrawals Vivian's been investigating. The trap snapped shut with an almost audible click. They'd broken into my house, stolen my evidence, and twisted it into their own weapon. And now... Where's Evelyn? I asked, suddenly aware of her absence. Resting, Mason said heavily. The doctor gave her something to help her sleep. Finding out that we trusted you. Mason, please. I stepped toward him, but Derek caught my arm. Don't, he warned. Just don't make this worse. Sophie wiped away a tear. We don't want to involve the police, your family, but you need help, Vivian, professional help. Tom knows an excellent therapist. Stop it! Karen's voice cracked through the room like a whip. She stood in the doorway, clutching her phone. I just got off a very interesting call with my friend at the bank, the one who handles the Turners' accounts. She had some fascinating things to say about recent access attempts from unauthorized IP addresses. Sophie's mask slipped for just a fraction of a second. Tom straightened, moving away from the window. Karen, Mason began. This isn't... Show them the security footage, I interrupted. From my home office, the camera I installed last week after the first break-in attempt. The color drained from Sophie's face. Tom's hand twitched toward his pocket, where I knew he kept his phone. Derek looked between us, realization slowly dawning. Viv, what's really going on here? Yes, Sophie. I met her eyes steadily. Why don't you tell them what's really going on, or should we wait for Chris to get home and explain it all at once? The tension in the room crystallized, sharp enough to draw blood. In the silence, we could hear Evelyn stirring upstairs, calling out in her medicated haze. Sophie's carefully constructed plan was unraveling, but cornered animals are the most dangerous. Her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Actually, she said, I think it's time we called Chris right now. Don't you? Chris's face on the video call looked exhausted, pixels breaking up as the connection wavered. I'm coming home, he said. Sophie sent me some concerning emails about the situation there. My fingers dug into the desk edge. What exactly did she tell you? That you've been acting erratic, accusing people of theft, breaking into her apartment. He rubbed his eyes. Mason called too. Said you're showing signs of what happened after your parents died. The bedroom door creaked behind me. I spun around to find Tom standing there, phone raised, recording. My stomach lurched as I realized this entire conversation was a setup. How long have you been there? Long enough, he smiled, tucking the phone away. Interesting how you didn't deny any of those accusations. I ended the call with Chris, my hands shaking. Get out. Can't do that. Sophie asked me to keep an eye on you. For your own safety, of course. He leaned against the doorframe. You know, Mason's health has been declining rapidly since all this started. The stress, probably. The threat wasn't subtle. I grabbed my keys, brushing past him. He caught my arm, gripped tight enough to bruise. Where are you going? To check on Mason. I'll drive you. The ride was silent, tension crackling. When we arrived, Sophie met us at the door, her face a mask of concern. Dad's resting, she said. The doctor gave him something for his blood pressure. Mom's with him. I pushed past her into the house, but stopped short at the sight of Derek in the living room, reviewing documents with Karen. Show her, Karen said quietly. Derek handed me a stack of papers. Bank statements, dating back 3 years. Account numbers I didn't recognize. Transactions that made my blood run cold. These were in a safety deposit box, he explained, under Mom and Dad's names. The one you never knew about. My parents' secret account. The inheritance they'd left, hidden from everyone. Everyone except... Sophie found it months ago, Karen said. She's been systematically draining it through a series of shell companies, all traced back to accounts she and Tom control. Tom's hand moved toward his pocket, but Derek was faster. Touch that phone and I break it, and maybe your fingers too. Sophie's laugh was hollow. You really think anyone will believe you? The grieving sister, obsessed with her parents' death, imagining conspiracies. The unstable daughter-in-law, jealous of family connections. She moved closer, voice dropping. I own this narrative, Vivian. I've spent months building it. Every erratic action, every angry outburst, I orchestrated them all. Why? The word felt like glass in my throat, because you were supposed to be temporary. The sweet, broken girl Chris married out of pity. But you stayed. You thrived. You started looking at the accounts, asking questions. Her smile turned cruel. Did you really think I'd let some orphan with daddy issues take what's mine? Upstairs, a door opened. Evelyn's voice drifted down, slurred and confused. Sophie, is Vivian here? I need to tell her. Mom's not feeling well, Sophie called back. Remember what the doctor said about rest? But Evelyn appeared at the top of the stairs, gripping the railing. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused. The medicine. Something's wrong with the medicine. She swayed, and I lunged forward just as she collapsed. We tumbled down together, my shoulder taking the brunt of the impact. Through the explosion of pain, I heard Sophie's theatrical scream, Tom calling 911, Derek shouting. Karen's face appeared above me, her words distant. Don't move, either of you. Evelyn's hand found mine, squeezing weakly. The pills, she whispered. Sophie's been... The prescriptions... Shh, Mom. Sophie rushed over, mask firmly in place. You're confused. The paramedics are coming. But I saw it now. The perfect plan. Sophie hadn't just been stealing money. She'd been slowly poisoning her own mother, setting up her convenient decline while positioning herself as the devoted daughter. And I was the unstable outsider who would take the blame when Evelyn finally... I met Sophie's eyes over Evelyn's crumpled form. She saw the realization there and smiled, just slightly. The game had changed. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about survival. The toxicology report felt heavy in my hands as I sat in the hospital parking lot. 3 different medications in Evelyn's system, none of them prescribed by her actual doctor. My phone buzzed with another message from Chris. Landing in 2 hours. What's really going on? I started the car instead of responding. The pharmacy records Karen had helped me obtain were spread across the passenger seat, each one showing prescriptions filled under Mason's name. all written by the same doctor, a name I didn't recognize, but Sophie obviously did. The hospital room was quiet, except for the steady beep of monitors. Mason sat beside Evelyn's bed, his shoulders hunched with exhaustion. When he saw me, something flickered across his face. Fear? Guilt? "She's sleeping," he said quietly. "The doctors say..." "Did you know?" The words came out sharper than intended. "About the prescription Sophie was filling in your name." His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted Evelyn's blanket. "You don't understand. Sophie said it was temporary, just to help with the anxiety until..." "Until what?" "Until Evelyn was too confused to manage her own finances. Until she signed everything over to Sophie." I pulled out the pharmacy records. "These aren't anxiety medications, Mason. They're sedatives, antipsychotics, drugs that shouldn't be combined. You need to leave." Sophie's voice cut through the room. She stood in the doorway, Tom hovering behind her like a shadow. "You're upsetting everyone with these ridiculous accusations." I turned to Mason. Tell her what you just told me about the prescriptions." But Mason wouldn't meet my eyes. I think I might have been confused earlier. Sophie's right, you're not thinking clearly." My laugh sounded strange, even to my own ears. Amazing how everyone around Sophie suddenly becomes confused. First Evelyn, now you. "That's enough." Tom stepped forward, reaching for my arm. "Let's take this outside." I jerked away from him, bumping into the medical cart. Something clattered to the floor, a small bottle of pills. Sophie lunged for it, but I was faster. The label showed Evelyn's name, but the medication inside didn't match the description. I'd seen enough of my parents' prescriptions after their accident to recognize the difference. "Interesting," I said, pocketing the bottle before Sophie could grab it. "I wonder what the hospital pharmacist would make of this." "Give me the bottle." Sophie's composed mask cracked slightly. "You have no idea what you're doing." "Actually, I do. For the first time, I really do." I moved toward the door. "I'm taking this to the lab, then I'm calling Chris and telling him everything. The forged prescriptions, the stolen money, all of it." "Chris won't believe you." But uncertainty crept into her voice. "I've made sure of that. Maybe not at first, but unlike you, I have proof that doesn't rely on manipulation and lies." Tom blocked the doorway. "You're not going anywhere with that bottle. Let her go." Mason's voice surprised us all. He stood shakily, years of guilt etched on his face. "I'll tell Chris everything. About the prescriptions, about Sophie's threats, about what really happened to Evelyn's inheritance." Sophie spun toward him. "Dad, you can't. I can't watch this anymore." His voice broke. "I couldn't save your mother from your lies, but I can stop you from destroying another family." The monitors suddenly screamed as Evelyn's vitals spiked. Sophie used the chaos to lunge for me, her fingers clawing for the bottle. We crashed into the medical equipment, alarms blaring around us. Through the chaos, I heard running footsteps, shouts from hospital staff. Sophie's nails raked my face as she fought for the evidence that could destroy everything she'd built. "Security!" Tom's voice rose above the chaos. "She's attacking Sophie! Somebody stop her!" I broke free, clutching the bottle, and ran. Behind me, Sophie's theatrical sobs echoed down the hallway, perfectly pitched to paint me as the aggressor, again. But this time was different. This time I had proof, not just of the financial fraud, but of something far worse, something that could send Sophie to prison instead of just exposing her lies. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. Chris's message was simple. "At the airport. Where are you?" I started the engine, my hands steady for the first time in weeks. The game had changed. Sophie thought she was fighting for money and control. I was fighting for justice, and unlike her, I knew exactly how far I was willing to go to get it. The lab results lay scattered across Karen's kitchen table like evidence from a crime scene. Each page confirmed what we already knew. The medications in Evelyn's system were slowly poisoning her. But Sophie had been thorough. Every prescription traced back to Mason's name, every transaction carefully documented. "She's thought of everything," I said, my voice hollow. "Even if we take this to the police..." They'll see a concerned daughter helping her father manage prescriptions. Karen's fingers drummed against her coffee mug. And a troubled daughter-in-law making wild accusations. My phone buzzed. Chris. Where are you? Sophie says you attacked her at the hospital. Before I could respond, another message appeared. Police want to talk to you about the incident. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Through Karen's front window, I saw Tom's car parked across the street, Sophie in the passenger seat. 2 police officers stood on the porch. Back door, Karen whispered, already gathering the papers. I'll stall them. I slipped out through the garden, heart pounding. But Sophie had planned for this too. Derek stood by my car, his expression torn between concern and accusation. You need help, Viv, he said quietly. Everyone can see it except you. Did Sophie tell you about the prescriptions, about what she's doing to Evelyn? She told me about the paranoid accusations, about how you're acting exactly like you did after Mom and Dad. He stepped closer. Let me help you, like I should have back then. The betrayal hit harder than any physical blow. I backed away from him, from the brother who'd once promised to always believe in me. You have no idea what's really happening. I know my sister. His voice cracked, and this isn't you. Police radio chatter grew closer. I ran, leaving everything behind. The evidence, my car, my last ally. Sophie had orchestrated this perfectly, using my own past trauma to paint me as unstable. Even Derek believed her now. The hospital was my only option. If I could get to Mason, get him to tell the truth about the prescriptions. But Sophie had thought of that too. Security stopped me at the entrance. Miss Miles, we need you to come with us. There's a restraining order. I backed away, watching my last chance crumble. Through the hospital windows, I saw Sophie entering Evelyn's room, her mask of concern firmly in place. Mason wouldn't help me now. No one would. My phone buzzed again. Chris. Coming to get you. Stay where you are. Please don't make this worse. Rain started falling as I walked, no destination in mind. Sophie had won. She'd isolated me completely, turned everyone against me, even used my parents' death to destroy my credibility. The evidence I'd gathered meant nothing without someone to believe it. A car slowed beside me. Tom rolled down the window, his smile triumphant. Need a ride? Sophie's worried about you wandering around in the state. Tell Sophie she can stop pretending. She's won. Has she? His smile widened. Then why are you still fighting? Why not just let go, like your parents did? The implication hit me like ice water. I stared at him, seeing something dark and familiar in his expression. What do you know about my parents' accident? He shrugged, but his eyes gave him away. Accidents happen all the time. Brake lines fail. People get confused about their medications. Sometimes the wrong person notices discrepancies in financial records. The pieces click together with sickening clarity. Sophie hadn't just studied my past trauma, she'd helped create it. She and Tom had been practicing their techniques long before I married Chris. Tom's smile never wavered. Sophie said you were smart, figured you'd work it out eventually. Shame no one will believe you about this either. He drove away, leaving me standing in the rain with the truth too horrific to process. My phone kept buzzing. Chris, Derek, the police. Each one convinced I was having another breakdown. Each one ready to help Sophie protect me from myself. But they didn't understand. This wasn't about saving Evelyn anymore, or exposing Sophie's schemes. This was about justice. For my parents. Pence. For Evelyn, for everyone Sophie and Tom had destroyed. I pulled out the burner phone Karen had given me earlier. One number saved. A journalist who specialized in exposing medical fraud. Sophie thought she'd taken everything from me. She'd forgotten that people with nothing left to lose are the most dangerous. The journalist's expose hit every major news outlet simultaneously. I watched Sophie's carefully constructed world implode from Karen's living room, my burner phone buzzing with updates. 3 other families had come forward, all with similar stories. Mysterious illnesses, missing money, manipulated prescriptions. The hospital room door clicked shut behind me. Sophie stood by Evelyn's bed, her back to the door. I wondered when you'd show up. It's over, Sophie. The police are reviewing the journalist's evidence. She turned, and I almost stepped back. The mask was gone, leaving something raw and dangerous. You think you've won? That article is circumstantial. Tom's already calling it a witch hunt. Tom's busy dealing with his own problems. The police found interesting things in his financial records. About my parents' accident. Her laugh was brittle. Prove it. Prove any of it. You're still the unstable widow's daughter, seeing conspiracies everywhere. I'm the devoted caretaker who's been slowly poisoning her mother. Mason's voice made us both turn. He stood in the doorway holding a phone. I recorded everything, Sophie. Your threats, the prescription schemes, all of it. The monitors beeped steadily as Sophie's composure cracked. You wouldn't dare. I'm your daughter. No. Evelyn's voice was weak but clear. She struggled to sit up, her eyes finally clear of the drug-induced haze. You're what I let you become, by looking away, by making excuses. Sophie moved fast, grabbing for the IV stand, but I was faster. We crashed into the medical cart, sending equipment scattering. Her nails raked my face as she fought with desperate fury. I deserved everything, she screamed. While you played happy family with your perfect new daughter-in-law, I was making sure we survived. I protected us. By killing people. I grabbed her wrists as she reached for Evelyn's IV line. Like you killed my parents. They were asking questions about the accounts, about Tom's business. Her eyes were wild now. They wouldn't stop digging, just like you. The door burst open. Chris stood there, face ash white, hearing his stepsister confess to murder. Behind him, Derek watched in horror as Sophie's facade finally shattered completely. It was supposed to be simple, she gasped, still struggling. Get rid of you like the others, but you wouldn't break. Why wouldn't you just break? Security rushed in, followed by police officers. As they pulled Sophie away, she started laughing, a hollow, broken sound. You still don't get it, do you? I won. The moment you decided to destroy me, you became exactly what I wanted. Someone capable of anything, just like me. The words hit harder than any physical blow. I looked at Chris, seeing the shock and grief in his eyes. At Derek, who couldn't meet my gaze. At Mason and Evelyn. Holding hands as their daughter was led away in handcuffs. She's wrong, Karen said quietly, appearing beside me. You exposed the truth. You protected people. But Sophie's words echoed in my head. I'd become so focused on revenge, on winning, that I'd almost lost myself in the process. The evidence would have been enough, but I'd wanted more. Wanted her to suffer like I had. Vivian. Chris reached for me, hesitant. Why didn't you tell me about your parents, about what she was doing? Would you have believed me? The question hung between us like shattered glass. I don't know, he admitted, but I believe you now. Evelyn's monitor chirped as her vitals stabilized. The doctors said she'd recover, now that the poisoning had stopped. Mason sat beside her, years of guilt evident in his posture. Derek stepped forward. I should have trusted you, should have seen. We all should have, Mason interrupted. We saw what we wanted to see, what Sophie wanted us to see. I looked down at my hands, remembering how close I'd come to crossing lines I couldn't uncross. Sophie was right about one thing, revenge changes you. But maybe the real victory wasn't in destroying her, but in refusing to become her. Chris took my hand, his grip steady. Let's go home. But home, I realized, would never be quite the same. None of us would. The courtroom emptied slowly after Sophie's sentencing. I lingered, watching her being led away, her designer outfit replaced by prison orange. She caught my eye at the last moment, and I saw something flicker across her face. Not remorse exactly, but recognition. Ready? Chris touched my shoulder gently. In the hallway, Mason waited with Evelyn, who looked stronger now that she was free from Sophie's cocktail of medications. There's something you need to see, Mason said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. I should have shown you months ago. Inside were photographs, Sophie and Tom at my parents' funeral. I hadn't noticed them there, hadn't known to look. How long have you had these? Since the investigation into their accident. His hands shook slightly. I recognized the pattern when Sophie moved in with us. The same techniques, the same slow poisoning. But I was too much of a coward to stop it. You knew. The words tasted like ash. All this time. I enabled her, Evelyn said quietly. Made excuses. Told myself she just needed more love, more patience. Even when I started feeling sick, I couldn't admit what she was doing. Derek stepped forward, his designer's eye catching something in the photos. Look at their expressions. They're not grieving, they're studying, learning from what worked. We all failed, Chris said. We saw what we wanted to see. Karen appeared with coffee, ever the steady presence. The question is, what do you see now? I looked at the photos again, at Sophie's calculated observation of others' grief, at Tom's satisfied smile, at all the signs we'd missed because we were too afraid to look closer. I see the truth, I said, and that's enough. But it wasn't quite. Back home, I found a letter waiting. Sophie's handwriting, precise as ever. You think you've won, exposing everything. But ask yourself, who taught me? Who showed me how to manipulate, to poison slowly, to destroy families from within? Tom wasn't the mastermind. He was just another student like me. The real teacher is still out there, watching, learning from my mistakes. Maybe you'll ignore this, call it my final attempt to cause chaos. Or maybe you'll do what I did, start looking closer at the people around you. Either way, you're changed now. You know too much about human nature to ever feel safe again. Congratulations on your victory, sister. Welcome to the game. Chris found me staring at the letter. What is it? I could tell him. Could start the whole cycle again. Investigation, suspicion, revenge. Could become exactly what Sophie predicted. Instead, I fed the letter into the shredder. Nothing important. The police want to reopen some cold cases, he said. Similar patterns to what Sophie and Tom did. They'd like your help analyzing the financial records. I thought about Sophie's words, about how easy it would be to lose myself in the pursuit of more justice, more revenge, to let it consume me like it had consumed her. No, I said finally. I'm done looking backward. Derek called that evening about selling our parents' house. Evelyn and Mason were moving closer to us, starting fresh. Karen had introduced Mason to her investment group, giving him purpose beyond his guilt. Life was shifting, realigning. But late that night, I found myself at the computer, looking at Sophie's letter that I'd scanned before destroying, at the hint of a larger conspiracy, of a hidden mentor. The cursor blinked over the search bar. Waiting. Chris's arms wrapped around me from behind. Whatever you're thinking, you don't have to decide now. I closed the laptop. He was right. The truth about Sophie's mentor, if there was one, could wait. We'd earned our peace, however temporary it might be. But I kept the scanned letter, encrypted and hidden. Not out of fear or obsession, but as a reminder. Sometimes victory isn't about exposing every secret or righting every wrong. Sometimes it's about choosing which battles to fight and which to let go. Sophie had taught me that much, at least. I turned away from the computer and toward my future, knowing that some reflections are better left unexamined, at least for now.